Good evening, comic fans and all the ships at sea. Paolo and I are here, and Wilson will be here shortly, and we'll see who else shows up. I'm not sure. But at least this week, I don't think anyone died. We don't have
That's good.
we don't have any comic book people to say, "Oh my goodness, can you believe they died this week?" So I was happy about that because there've been a lot of people dying this year.
Yes.
A whole bunch of them.
And we were not happy about that.
No, not at all. We prefer them to live. We were just discussing football, American football, and European football. But
As we call it, real football.
but I actually bought an American football related thing this week. Just good evening, Tit Goblin. How are you this week? Just on I guess I just wanted to waste $20. I was on eBay looking around for stuff. I don't collect autographs. I don't collect football cards. But for some reason, and usually these go for around, these particular type of cards go for around $50. And this is a Tiki Barber, one of my favorite old time from the 2000s, from the 90s and 2000s Giants players. And this is, I've never had one of these cards before. See this little blue rectangle over here? Where is it? There? That's a piece of game-worn jersey. And down under here is his autograph. Guaranteed authentic by Panini.
Okay.
So
you have the guy's sweat inside a sleeve.
Yes. and who knows? There was a I think it was Eli Manning a few years ago who got in trouble for, I think he got sued along with a bunch of other people for selling game-worn stuff, only it wasn't really game-worn stuff. So I know sometimes they just put on a jersey during the game for a moment and then take it off. So, but I think that was after the Tiki Barber era, but I'm not sure. But it's like, I don't know. I was like paid less than $20 for it, which was a good price. But I was just like, I was just on eBay looking to waste $20, I guess. Because I ended up with a Tiki Barber autographed piece of a jersey. I wonder how many cards they can get out of a piece of jersey. We'd have to do the math on that. We have to measure a jersey, see how many square inches it is, and see, or square centimeters.
Yeah.
And then
a racing driver once gave me this bottle, but it was not used. It was brand
new. Yes, this says, what does it say? The enclosed player-worn / used material. I get, so maybe it's not game worn. Maybe he just put it on and took it off. So there's no sweat on it. It's just, they're just like, here, try on these 50 jerseys. And autograph are guaranteed by Panini America Incorporated. Guaranteed what? It doesn't say guaranteed authentic. It just says guaranteed.
Yeah, we saw him put it on and take it off.
2021 Panini Gold Standard Football.
All right.
Good as gold. And this is number 23 of 40. Is it 40 or 49? 23 of 49. So I guess they could get 49 little pieces of jersey, at least for this series. I wonder if Panini buys the whole jersey and cuts it up, or someone else cuts it up and sells them 40 pieces of the jersey.
Well, in order to properly sell it, they would need a licensing agreement, so they would cut it themselves.
I would think if they're going to guarantee it, even though they don't say what it's guaranteed. Enclosed, player-worn, used material. I
Mm-hmm.
guess it's guaranteed it's player-worn and or used.
Yeah. Yeah. Ted Goblin says you can clone the player now.
Clone the football player and release them to an island park where nothing can possibly go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Tiki already has a clone because he's got a twin brother who played football too, Rondé Barber. They were twins. Billy and the Clonosaurus's jersey. That's the movie. In the 400 years in the future, some archaeologist digs up one of these cards and clones an army of football players.
Mm-hmm. We found DNA. I wonder what it is.
Another thing on eBay that I saw but didn't get was, if you remember, I've showed this before to people who haven't seen this. This is the Marvel age that I was in. In the back of this, there's 2 pages of John Romita criticizing my tryout inks kind of thing. I've showed this before. Here, I'll show it again. Marvel 1990. This is issue 89 of Marvel Age. There, new talent, Jared Osborne. I was just sitting around the bullpen, practicing my inks over some Gene Colan. Greetings, Sleepy Reader. And Barry Dutter saw it and was like, oh, can I give those to John? I'll make an article out of it, because he was looking for articles. I said, sure. So somebody on eBay had a CGC'd version of this. First New Warriors, I guess, because this is the preview of the New Warriors. A 9.4. And they wanted $90 for it, plus I think $10 shipping. I was just like, you know what? I think that'd be, I don't have any, I've been looking to buy, because I have no CGC books. I've always been looking to get one just sort of as a conversation piece, just to have one CGC book in my collection. But I always end up going, the cheapest ones are about $40. I always end up going, why do I want to pay $40 for a $5 comic?
Yeah.
But the guy actually but I put it on my watch list, and I actually got an offer from the guy for like $20 off, but still $80 was too expensive. And I went, So I ended up not getting it. Instead, wasting $20 on my Tiki Barber jersey card. It's the first Jared Osborne. There you go.
Yeah. So here it is, my illegally scanned copy of Marvel Age number 89. So, and there you are in production alongside Joe Albello.
Oh, is that the beginning of it?
Yep. Dahlia Aponte, Darren Ock, Paul Beckton, Steve Bunch, Rob Carosella, Chris Eliopoulos, Cindy Ebert, Jesus Gonzalez, Brad K. Joyce, Ed Lazzolari, Edward Murr, Betty Ringma, and George Roberts.
There we go. There's a 1990 bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to turn my books I read into oversized baseball cards. Yeah.
But then you have the art directors team, John Romita, Don Perlin. Then the writers, Joe Rosas, Mickey Ritter, and Brad Venkata. And then Virginia's team, Don Geiger, Joyce Fua, Linda Strunk, and Jack Abel.
There you
was
go.
Was listed as world's toughest proofreader.
Yep. But I was like, sometimes my friend Ed sends stuff into CGC, and I'm like, it would be cheaper. And he's like, he always goes, oh, do you have anything you want to send in? I'm like, I have like 5 copies of this. I'm like, it'd be cheaper to just send in one copy of my own someday and pay $80 for an already CGC'd one. So once again, I ended up not buying a CGC book.
Oh, damn. Kurt Busiek is still working for Carl Kalish in this one.
Yeah, early, 1990 was a long time ago. That was when I first started.
And Fabian Nicieza is still working in advertising.
Yep.
They have all the credits here.
Yeah. Marvel Age. Marvel Age had all the credits for everyone in it. Usually, that was the only place you'd see like the bullpen credited. Let's see who else is there.
Okay, so there's Shelley Fish
Yeah,
and
Fabian wasn't even
John
an editor
Zimmerman.
yet.
Yeah, but if this is introducing the new Warriors, so he's already writing.
Right. Sven Larsson was there. Yeah, Irving Forbush, old.
Yes. How did you get along with Irving Forbush?
Oh, we got along great. Well, look at all these people. Friendly assistants. Oh, Christine Sluzars. She died.
And you'd know a few of these names because they every now and then they pop up as guest inkers or letters or colorists.
Suzanne Gaffney went on to be an editor, and she actually designed the first Essential volumes too. The design we were forced to use for years was her.
Not the best one.
No, never. Look at all those people. Little Steve Alexandrov? Who put that in there? I never saw that before. There's Barry the Dutt Man Dutter. He's the one who said, hey, we want to make that an article? Can I make that an article? I said, sure. Lots of old people in there now. One of my local stores has a good Marvel Age section. Can you hold up the cover again? It's the New Warriors preview, issue 89. So Deathlock is back. So it's easy to tell because it's the first New Warriors preview. 1990 Marvel Age. Is this a Darren Auk back cover?
Interview with Fabian Nicieza. Who's running?
Ron Salme.
Okay. Interview by Dwight John Zimmerman. Okay, so here's the Deathlock preview. Written by Peter Sanderson.
If you got the CG Seed version of this, you'd know none of it.
Fred Hembeck's Nova.
Have they ever done a collection of the Fred Hembeck Marvel Age cartoons?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. That's something they should do.
Right.
That would seem to be a natural.
Yeah, the complete Marvel by Fred Hembeck's Marvel Universe.
Yeah, because I know they've reprinted some of his actual comic stuff. Like I think there's a collection. At least one time there was a collection of like Fred Hembeck Kills the Marvel Universe and a couple other actual books he did for them. But I don't think it included all the Marvel Age stuff. I wonder if they archived it. Speaking of archives, here's something that I talked about on my comic book haul that I find interesting and a little baffling. This week came out a Wonder Woman facsimile edition, issue 204, The Second Life of Wonder Woman, introducing Nubia. But this one looks like it was printed right from scans of the comic. The screens have blotching in them. This is definitely, but DC has always done a good job of archiving their stuff. All the way back to the Golden Age, DC had stats and film of their. That's why their old Golden Age hardcover stuff looked good because they archived it. I wonder why this issue was scanned from a copy of the comic. It's just strange.
Well, between all the moving and ownership changes in the last few years, you bet that along the way they lose the people in charge of archiving.
Maybe they could have. You're right. I hadn't thought of that. The Legion of Osborne fans are going to drive up the price of Marvel Age. Let's get it on Cartoonist Kayfabe. Marvel Age made me mad as a kid. Paying for Marvel's advertisements for its books felt like a
Yep.
ripoff. I don't have that much money to spend on comics anyway. Yeah, I can understand that, but like I imagine for a lot of people who loved it, it was their only glimpse at behind the scenes at Marvel. Picked up that Wonder Woman facsimile, but haven't looked at it yet. You'll be surprised that it's printed from an old comic and not from their archived material. Well, you're right. I hadn't thought they may have gotten, because I had heard that I think the digital guy is different from their actual archivist. And I think they fired their archivist last year or the year before. So maybe that's why they couldn't find the digital files for this. Because there's no one to be in charge of it. Who knows? But I found that, look at the blotchiness in that orange. And DC just doesn't usually print stuff like this. Makes me wonder what's going on. They cleaned up the back ad, though. They made sure that was okay. And they
What
cleaned
was
up
the back
cover.
ad? What was the ad for?
Aurora. 4 ways to get the A/FX racing set you want for Christmas. Okay, so it's for Aurora slot car racing.
Yeah, I don't think that exists anymore. They don't need Aurora AFX doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Aurora AFX is better known as racing fans, not for their slot racing kits, but because they were the main sponsor of the British Formula One Championship between 1978 and 1980.
I know them from, I believe they made those models of Frankenstein, Werewolf, Dracula. I think those were Aurora model kits. So they made model kits that were comic book adjacent. I think they used to advertise the model kits in the comics too. If memories, that was a little before my time, maybe though, the early 70s.
So let me see what they have for slot cars. Okay, so they had. Oh, nice. Oh. Okay, these aren't very good. The Porsche 917 looks good. The Dodge Charger Daytona looks terrible. What the hell is the turbo turn on? Okay. The Shadow Cannon's not bad.
Is there anybody still making slot car racers?
Sure.
They are?
Yeah, and the kits are now they don't actually for the tracks. It's less important to build full track kits, but to make sure that there are parts available so that individuals can recreate real tracks.
Okay.
And there are people that modify slots bodies so they create cars that have never been officially released. And sometimes they try to do actual races that take as long as real races. So imagine somebody trying to do the Daytona 500, go for 500 for the equivalent of 500 miles. I know several clubs do their own version of the Le Mans 24 hours.
Wow. That's
although I imagine there are more than 3 people per car.
Yeah.
Because in those types of events, there's a lot of beer going on.
Yeah. It's about the drinking and socializing. Slot. Yeah, I had a little slot car kit when I was a kid. It never worked that well. The 1/64th scale cars. They had how did it work? There was like a little bar that came out of the bottom of the front of the car, and that fit in the slot on the track.
Yep.
I guess that transferred the electricity to the car. And it went
yeah. Yeah. Apart from that, the bodies are pretty much interchangeable.
Yeah.
but people like seeing the cars look like real
Right.
racing cars.
People want their realism.
Mm-hmm. No, on the four color fossils, Charlton 66 pulled out a few Charlton comics of their. With the Charlton had a line of auto racing comics.
Hot Rod, right? That was one.
Yeah, hot rods and racing cars and surfing wheels and stuff like that. And I commented that the cars were actually based on real models in a lot of cases, but the color was screwing them. Because I remember a cover that featured the Can-Am Championship, which was a championship made for unlimited sports racing cars. They had to have 2 seats, and then you could do everything else the way you wanted. So what you had was cars with 500 cubic inch Chevy big blocks, which were dominating the series until the Porsche turbos came along.
Huh.
And I noticed there was one car called the Chaparral, and on the comic it looked pretty good. It was very believable. There's just one problem: the car was painted red. Chaparrals were not sold to private teams, and the works team they had white cars, so you couldn't have a red Chaparral.
That reminds me, I was just seeing on Twitter, somebody posted a bunch of Silver Age comics that were licensed. I forget where, somewhere in Europe, a country I really don't associate with Marvel comics. That's probably, I didn't know they were licensed over there. But of course, when they licensed them, they only sent them the black and white stats. So of course they were colored all crazy because it was Daredevil. That was it. They didn't know what color the costumes were.
Yeah, if they don't send them the original copy, so they can look at see what they looked like originally, they guess.
Yeah.
Marvel and Captain America, that one's easy. The rest, it's whatever they want.
Marvel Age wasn't the title where they try out a new artist before using them on a selling title. That was Marvel Comics Presents.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel Comics Presents was a weekly comic that had 3 8-page stories in it. And they would try to get like tried and true guys to keep the book selling and also new guys to try out. But like that's where Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X ran first, was in Marvel Comics Presents. And also I think guys like Eric Larson and Rob Liefeld did some work for Marvel Comics Presents too, when they were big names. And also a lot of Marvel Comics Presents was like they'd get like Steve Ditko would do an 8-page story, and then somebody who always wanted to ink Steve Ditko, some big name, would ink Steve Ditko. That'd be his chance to ink Steve Ditko.
Yep.
There you go. Well, that was one of the tough ones to get out. It's tough to get out a weekly book for editors. Yep. I mean, a deadline a week is not easy.
No, you have to have the whole comic done 2 weeks before the actual deadline.
And juggling 3 different creative teams too. Because 3 different 8-page creative teams is like, woo. That was not a glamorous job.
Yeah, actually read the first Joe Madureira's first work, the North Star story.
Yeah,
it was used as the filler on something around here. Because when the comics all went to 22 pages, that messed up the production of comics for foreign publications. Because if you had an 80 or 100 page comic, you'd have the leftover space. And Marvel Comics Presents was a godsend, because if you needed the room, you could just slot an 8-pager in there, and you wouldn't have to come up with extra stuff to fill up the space.
I always find Joe Madureira, his sort of happenstance, amazing, because he was a high school intern at Marvel. He used to sit next to me. Nice guy, good kid, could draw well, but for some reason, he caught Bob Harris's eye, his work. And it is the only time I ever saw that happen ever, where like an intern or even the Raiders, the Raiders who were all there being trained by John Romita, they had to, compete and fight for work just like everybody else. And some of them made it and some of them didn't. Some of them, like Scott Koblish, took him years and years to establish himself. But for some reason, Bob Harris really liked 16-year-old Joe Madureira's stuff, and he got work from him. And that was just like, wow. That is the only time I saw that happen. I saw a lot of talented people go through that place. And he's the only one I saw that happen with. It was just kind of it still amazes me to this day. I'm like, why?
Yeah, and that North Star story was not anything to write home about.
No,
it doesn't even look like like Madureira, but personally, I was never a fan of his style.
Neither. Joe Mad made more money drawing for gaming companies. He never came back to comics. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
But the thing is, it was his comic that he left hanging.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say, okay, I'm going to quit the X-Men because it's not paying me enough, okay,
he went,
whatever.
did his own thing. But as a kid, I never had babysitters. Instead, got dragged to my mother's Girl Guides meetings, and I got in a big fight with everyone because I wanted a slot car race instead of everyone doing sewing. I don't blame you. Slot car racing is way more fun than sewing.
Yes, it is.
Though I learned to sew in home ec class and occasionally sew a button. Do stuff like that. Yeah, but Joe Mad was one of the, I remember, who was it? Ernie Chan also left comics for video games. A lot of comic guys in the 90s, like Ernie Chan, who weren't getting work anymore, too, left. Moved to California, joined the video game industry. Darksiders have been on many gaming platforms as well as Battle Chasers. Okay.
A local publisher got the rights to Battle Chasers. They started publishing almost simultaneously with Image, and they were going to bring Joe Mad to Portugal because they sold him on the idea that his dad would come back because his dad went to America when he was 12, and he hadn't been home since forever.
Okay.
But then Joe quit doing comics, and okay, I don't want to go to Portugal, whatever.
Yeah, I remember that. I think we've talked about this before too. I remember a time in the early 90s when big name comic artists started doing all sorts of covers for the video game magazines. When they found out, a comic book cover would pay them $300 or $400, and a magazine cover would pay them $1,000 or $2,000. So it's like all of a sudden you saw Jim Lee and everybody doing Electronic Gaming Monthly and covers like that. Because all of a sudden the magazine cover, the magazine editors discovered that they could hire these guys. Mm-hmm. They're like, wow, we can get some of the biggest names out there to do our covers because comics pays that little.
Yeah. The other funny thing is when you see old guys from comics working on comic strips because they can't get work in comics anymore. It used to be that comics people want to be in the strips because that was the big time.
Because that was big time, big pay.
Now they go into strips because they can't get a job at Marvel.
And I don't think the strips pay that well anymore either. You're right. Who was doing Apartment 3G for years? And I always see announcements of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm always like, oh, that's where they are, doing comic strips. And they're like, who's doing Tarzan? Tom Yates was doing it for a while. Yeah. And then And I'm like, I just never see those strips, so I don't know. Wonder why, Paolo. Portugal rates high is a great country to move to.
Oh no, he just didn't want to waste time moving here because now that he didn't need to work on the comic anymore, he saw no point in that.
Yeah, he didn't want to bother traveling
Yeah.
for Comic Con.
Mm-hmm. Instead, we got Jimmy Palmiotti.
There you go, Jimmy P.
But they also published his wife's one shot, the Pro here.
Okay, right. The Pro. I think they're doing a new. Well, there was in Image. In the Image anthology, there was a little 2, 4, 6-page Pro story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to be doing a Pro Volume 2. I read recently, but I haven't seen. I can't swear to it. I think I just remember seeing that. Which reminds me, let me go get my comic shop news just to show. Comic shop news is good at getting me excited about comics I'm not really that interested in. Like Batman Spawn. I'm always like, oh, cool, Batman Spawn. Then I'm like, I'm not that interested in Batman Spawn. Tom Yates is currently doing Prince Valiant. Once upon a time, that would be the ultimate dream. Yeah, it is amazing. Now it's like, no one ever sees Prince Valiant or Tarzan. Or like I said, I've seen a lot of comic book names doing those, especially the few remaining adventure strips like Tarzan and Prince Valiant and the Phantom. I forget who was doing that, but somebody who used to be in comics. Paulo, do you have free health care?
Nobody has free health care. The government takes it out of your paycheck. Right. If you're working for somebody else, you have to contribute 33.5% of your paycheck, of which 11.5% comes directly from you, and the other 21.5% is paid by your employer. Mm-hmm. Which is why the employers never want to increase your wages, because they have to pay more of your health care. If you work for yourself, if you're self-employed, you have to pay 25% of your paycheck to Social Security. That does not influence how much you pay in taxes for the revenue. That's separate. So you pay taxes, and then you pay healthcare, and then you pay Social Security, which is where the healthcare comes from, and those are separate. Mm-hmm. People think that in Europe we have free stuff. We don't.
You pay taxes. They don't understand you pay taxes and you get it. Americans don't get that. They think if the government gives it to you, it's free. I've always found that amazing too. What else do we have here that's coming in? Here's some Disney mashup Marvel comic covers. I'm like, no, nice. Thank you. Those figures are on top of your taxes? Wow.
Yes. Because we don't pay taxes like you do, because you guys get paid and then you pay all your taxes in April or something.
No, they take it right out of our taxes. Okay. Unless you're a freelancer, you get it taken right out of your paycheck.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we have to pay taxes and we have to pay Social Security. The fact that we have to pay Social Security does not influence how much we pay on taxes. So every month. So suppose that you make 2,000 and we get paid by over 30 days. We don't get paid by the week. So so they always steal our money that way. If you make something like $1,200 a month, you only actually take about $850, $900 home.
Yeah, and when you get a check here from an employer, they take out FICA which I think is Social Security. That's 7.5%. Once again, that's 7.5%, and the employer pays 7.5%. If you're a freelancer like me, you pay the whole 15%. They take out. There's a payroll tax, is what it's called, and that's all. I haven't got an actual. Most of my stuff, yeah. Social Security includes health. Here we pay 14%. No, your employer pays 7.5%, and you pay 7.5% for Social Security. I know because I got to pay the whole 15%.
They may have different laws in Oregon.
No, that's federal.
Oh, that's federal. Okay.
That's federal.
But the one thing that we have with Social Security is for our health care, for potential unemployment, and
unemployment
in your retirement fund. We don't have to pay for our own. We don't have the retirement plans. The government handles your retirement funds.
Good evening, Tat.
Hey, Tat. Long time no see. How's it going?
And as a freelancer, I have to pay quarterly taxes. I have to estimate how much money I'm going to get in the year and estimate how much tax that's going to cost me. Like, what? Ooh, Archie versus the World. Look at that one. Oh, I didn't see that one. It looks like a Mad Max Archie comic. That's definitely a Mad Max swipe.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, then it looks like Dark Horse has another comic with a Who title. It's only Teenage Wasteland.
No.
4-issue series. Look. Then we get the Archies in India. Archies are going worldwide. Look at that. I tend to like to stay away from Dark Horse comics because their physical comics are not that great. Like they're on thin paper. I was thinking total Social Security. We also have 9% income tax, state income tax in Oregon. Should have worded it differently. Sounds like it's the same as Canada mostly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but I always hear U.S. people saying they have free health care over there, and it's like, no, it's not free.
Nobody has free health care. And there's a lot of stuff that's not covered by national health care. For example, these you actually have to pay for, and dental as well. Of course, our dental is not in. It used to be mildly expensive. Now it's stupidly expensive. But in America, it's insanely expensive.
Howler Mouse listening while driving home. Here's another one. They're reprinting Invincible #1 in black and white. They're calling it the Invincible Undeluxe version.
Right, because they've been reprinting the Walking Dead in color. They reprint the Invincible in black and white. That makes sense.
But it's like, why? And they're putting out an Invincible #1 facsimile edition. So why are they putting out the black? I just don't understand why they're putting. They also don't have a price for it. But I was like, why are they putting it out? They're putting out a facsimile and it in black and white. You got me. I don't know what the plan is with Invincible. Are they just trying to make an extra paycheck? Junkyard Joe #4, but that'll bring us to. I got Junkyard Joe #2 this week. The Go-Go Checks edition. Let's see what number this is. This is the main cover. Has the Go-Go Checks.
Yeah.
And I
wonder if we can get Dr. Silver Age to buy a modern comic just because it has Go-Go Checks.
He should. I got first 2 issues. Got the Go-Go Checks on them. And I really liked the first issue, but I didn't put it on my pull list. I was waiting for the second issue. Because the first issue took place during the Vietnam War, and it was a really well done war story. But I knew story wise, the next issue was not going to take place there; it was going to take place way in the future. So I was like, what if I don't like the change of time and scenery? So, but I ended up really liking this issue. It takes place. Well, let me show you. This old man right here was the lead character during the Vietnam story. He went on to become a comic strip artist. His whole life he's had a successful comic strip named Junkyard Joe. Where's the page of the comic strip on it? Because he and the first issue, like I said, he was with his platoon in Vietnam, and they sent him a new recruit. And this new recruit was really weird because it was a robot, Junkyard Joe, and he was acting really bad. But he had like a human face. He eventually lost his human face. And he was out on patrol with the rest of the platoon. And it's like everybody got killed but this one guy who went on to be a cartoonist. There's a Junkyard Joe cartoon. And his cartoon was about eternal boot camp, where the robot Junkyard Joe was like the perfect recruit, and all the humans could, comedically couldn't keep up with him. And so in this issue takes place as he's retiring. He's retiring his comic strip because he's old now. Takes place now, and he was a Vietnam vet. But he doesn't even remember if Junkyard Joe is real or not, because he only saw him that brief time he was in his platoon, and he doesn't quite believe his own memories. And he's been doing his fictional Junkyard Joe cartoon all these years. So this takes place when, after he retires, the robot Junkyard Joe shows up at his house. And he's just like, what? And then the story goes on from there. But really liked this issue. It's gonna go on my pull list now because I wasn't sure if I'd like issue 2, but I did. I like it better than Geiger, which is the comic that they did before. This is Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, and Brad Anderson. Rob Lee is the letterer. And this is like the first issue, if you remember, I was talking, was some of the best Gary Frank I've seen because it actually had some emotion in it. It wasn't superhero stuff; it was war stuff, and I just think he was better suited for the war stuff than his usual superhero stuff. And this was pretty well done too. What a boring cover. Besides the go-go checks, what a boring cover. A single leg and a boot in the snow? Looking at a house? How do you expect this to sell a comic? I mean, I didn't even look at it until right this minute. I mean, I know there's multiple versions of all covers these days, including Junkyard Joe, but I don't know who came up with that idea for a cover. You got me. And it's not even an interesting leg. But I mean, the folds are nicely done, but there's no charm, or the leg even looks too straight so you can fit it in there. Sometimes I wonder about the decisions people make.
You could at least have something in there to set the scene.
I think maybe the snowy house in the background. I don't know.
Yeah, the thing doesn't look like
what they're trying for.
Perspective doesn't look right, does it?
Perspective's okay. It's just the whole thing. I don't know if they were going for some emotion here. I think they missed it because Though the the house, I think the house is actually nicely done. The coloring is nicely done on the house, knocking it back into the distance. Maybe the leg should have been snow covered.
Hmm.
And I think the leg should have been bent a little. You know what it is? Sometimes when you're a really good illustrator, it messes with your composition. Like compositionally, this leg should have kind of been bent to give it some sort of weight to it. But Gary Frank
Hmm.
is so good at drawing those folds and making them look realistic that he obviously wanted them all on there.
Hmm.
I was just discussing this recently, where I'm saying I have a hard time doing like book design with my own artwork. Uh, because with book design, you kind of have to be ruthless about the art. You have to make the art about the book design in order for it to be a good book. But when you're doing book design with your own art, I know I tend to get precious about my art. I don't want to be ruthless with it. So it's like the book design is about the book designer figuring out the best way to present this art.
Hmm.
The artist is all about the best way to make this picture and kind of presenting. You don't want anything getting in the way of the picture itself. You don't want the presentation to get in the way of the picture. But when you're the book designer, it's all about the presentation. The picture can't get in the way of the presentation. I think in this one, the picture got in the way of the presentation. This this leg should have been cropped differently in order to make a better picture. It should have been
Hmm.
a leg that's not perfectly straight up and down. We should have
Right.
lost some of these nice folds, but I'm sure Gary Frank, the illustrator, was like, "No, I worked hard on those folds. They look good. I want them in there." Gary Frank, the cover designer, lost out, and
Yeah.
Gary Frank, the cover designer, if he, was ruthless about the illustration, he would have done it a little bit different. But he wanted to show off his folds because they look cool, to the detriment of the overall cover, which is just a stiff leg standing there.
Yeah. This reminds me of an issue of Wizard. They had the drawing tips,
Yeah,
and one issue they got Terry Moore to explain how to draw faces,
right.
and he was explaining the concept of doing the facial expression before you added the detail. Otherwise, if you start adding the detail as you're drawing each little piece, you get an asymmetrical face. And if you draw it like cartoony style first, and then you had then it looks like a real emotion, and then you can add the detail because now the face is going where it's supposed to go.
Right.
So I guess it's the same thing here. He spent so much time on the leg that he forgot what the leg was supposed to be doing.
Right. Right. That's a good way to describe it. Forgot what the leg was supposed to be doing. I got the special leg and stick cover incentive copy. Because the atmosphere of the house itself, I mean, probably doesn't come across on screen, but the snowy atmosphere of the house in the background actually kind of works.
Mm-hmm.
Just not with the leg.
Yeah, maybe they should have. If he had drawn the two legs, and then you get each foot pointing in different directions, then you'd have a better sense of where the legs are supposed to be in space.
Even if he drew the two legs and then just slid the one leg in there,
Mm-hmm.
that would probably have served him better too. I don't know if he did that or not, but that one leg doesn't look like it's connected to a person.
Yeah.
It really, just due to how straight it is. And
Yeah, because when you're standing up, your legs aren't straight.
I mean, I know he's a robot, but shouldn't he stand like a person?
Right. Because
Maybe that was part of the point of it. He stands real straight. Robot stands like a person right there. And look at his legs are
no,
not
but
perfectly straight up and down.
yeah, but weight distribution is not wouldn't even if the robot is designed as a person, the weight distribution is not
Yeah,
the
has
same
to.
because it'll have components doing different things. So the more spread out the weight is, the better balance the robot would have.
Wow, we really going deep into this leg. But darn, the folds are nice. And look at that pocket. That pocket's beautifully done.
It's got stuff inside.
Yeah. Even some weight in that pocket.
Yeah, maybe it's combat rations, but it's a robot, so he doesn't need them. It's combat rations from 20 years ago. He forgot that they were there.
What does it say here? The unnamed something. Oh, there's an extra logo down here that says is that his unnamed hero thing? Is that what that is? Let's see. There's another little thing. Oh yeah, it's just stars. See those stars at the bottom of the unnamed? I thought they were a word on the cover. So this is his time frame for his eternal heroes. We've got Geiger is in 2050. Junkyard Joe comes online in 1972. Mad Ghost, I think that's the name of Gary Frank's publishing imprint. But nice cardstock cover too.
Is there any noticeable attempt at making everything fit together, or it's one of those feelings, just one of those things that everything is set in the same universe?
I think Junkyard Joe may have showed up. I can't remember now in Geiger, but I think they want everything to fit together.
Yeah, but if the story is written to make sure that you have all plot points neatly tied together.
I don't know how neat it's going to be. I think there was just overlap in it. Like this has nothing to do with Geiger.
Sure, because the story is better if it's not all neatly tied together.
Right. I don't think I'd call it neatly tied together. There's nothing about Geiger in this one.
Good. That's better. Now, knowing that the stuff is in the same universe is better than having everything fit together in some sort of scheme.
But it's like here when it tells you the characters, there's like 1776. Redcoat becomes immortal. Since he's immortal, I think he can show up in other comics if he wants him to. 1864, the Northerner begins his hunt. 1944, the monster is made. 1972, Junkyard Joe comes online. 1997, American Widow X has her revenge. 2025, the first ghost is captured on film. 2030, the unknown war erupts, and 2050, Geiger walks across America. Oh, and it says, here's a little paragraph that goes with it. Throughout history, unlikely and strange heroes have risen and fallen. These men and women are a mystery, their identities and lives a secret. But for a great evil to be stopped, their stories must be told. From a radioactive family man in the near future to a British assassin during the American Revolution to a robotic killing machine seeking its creator and more. They are the unnamed, fighting the unknown war. I don't know how much information that gives us, but that's how much information we've got. So I guess Junkyard Joe is seeking his creator. He hasn't found him since Vietnam War.
Creator? Are you creator?
The cover reminds me of those 2-page spread pinups that made no sense in The Walking Dead all the time. They had the worst 2-page spreads in The Walking Dead. And I think it was Robert Kirkman who chose them. I remember reading sometime, but he he would have these like dramatic moments that in no way, shape, or form should have had a 2-page spread, because a 2-page spread should be visual. And it was just like a guy standing there. And you're like, this was your 2-page spread? Come on. You learn nothing from Kirby? And I don't blame the artist, Charlie Adler. Hey, look, it's Tim. He made it home.
All right.
How are you doing tonight, Tim?
Came straight in and got on Palos.
He's drawing you in?
I should get an actual camera so that I don't have to be on top of the laptop.
Ah.
So what's going on here?
I don't know what's going on.
You seem to have some sort of delay.
How's that?
Well, I can hear you. Wilson just showed up too. Hello there, Wilson.
Hello, my friends. How are you guys doing?
What is that?
Tim hasn't even got his coat off and hat off yet. So he just jumped right on. Wow.
Welcome.
I wish I had Goodbye Horses playing while I take this off. But anyway. How you doing, Wilson?
I'm doing well, thank you.
But Paulo, there was two things. Like, I almost left a comment because I think the name of the show is I Bet We Talk About Comics. I get on and I'm hearing Texas, 9% Social Security. I'm like, and y'all went on about it. And then all of a sudden we found out about Canada and Oregon. And I'm like, comics? But if I left a comment, it would have came off like, rude, I'm sure. But Paulo mentioned Terry Moore doing his drawing lessons on Wizard, man, and it took me back. I've got them all and they're marked. I've got them little pieces of paper so I could like go through and find all those Art Adams and Terry Moore. And when he was talking, I was like, I have that issue.
Did they ever do a collected edition of that?
Yes, and they go for big money.
Oh, okay.
Big money. I've already tried to look them up. I didn't even know they came out, or I would have pre-ordered them. Yes, yes.
I found an issue of Wizard fairly recently, and it happens to be about the Spider-Man movie. Have you heard of this? They're making a movie of the comic book character named Spider-Man.
Wow.
I hope they do well. Some guy named Tobey Maguire is going to be Spider-Man.
Oh, cool. I like him.
Let me see that.
But listen, when it comes to the comics news magazines, don't be afraid to look for scans online, because it's the only way you're going to get full sets, or you're going to get some specific information. It's not like this is something that can be remonetized easily on most cases. So it's not the same as downloading music and movies. It's the news magazines. They serve a purpose at that time, and then they go into the ether.
There's nothing to feel guilty about downloading scans of Wizard magazine.
Yes,
that's what Paulo is telling us.
Mm-hmm. No, nothing at all wrong with it. Yeah, they got.
I mean, I just admitted that I have Jared's first appearance in comics scanned.
We were discussing earlier this issue of Marvel Age 89 that I appeared in.
Did you appear in Illustrator or Photograph?
Illustrator. I was practicing. I was sitting in the bullpen one day practicing my inking, and Barry Dutter happened to be walking around. He was the editor of Marvel Age at the time. He's like, "Ooh, can I give these to John Romita and have him critique them? I'll make an article out of it." So here you can see new talent. Jared Osborne is up there, and these are the pages that I was practicing inking, and John Romita is giving me giving me a little critique up here in these. So that's what, and I just saw a CG Seed copy of this on eBay for $100.
There you go.
I was like,
Jared
that's a little too much for me.
Here's what's going to happen. I am going to find that in a dollar box at some point. Now that you've shown it, it's how these things work. And when I buy it, I want to end up telling the whole story about, like, I know there's a guy in here. I know him. He's in this. I can see.
It's the first New Warriors, so that's how you can know it too.
Yeah.
89. First
There you
New
go.
Warriors. That's what the guy was selling it as. It was a 9.4 CGC First New Warriors.
Yeah, and you don't need to see the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. Just watch the trailer. You know,
That's how I feel about just about every movie. I love trailers. The movies, but the trailers, like all the trailers for all those Marvel movies, are always good. Those trailer guys know what they're doing. The movie themselves can vary. Like I loved, which was it? It was the Suicide Squad trailer, the first one that used a Queen song. They may have used Bohemian Rhapsody or something.
I don't
think
know.
they did.
And it was just a great trailer. I must have watched that trailer 10 times. Never had any interest in seeing the movie, but loved the trailer.
Well, come here.
That always makes me think of there used to be this guy we worked with at Marvel. This is like in the early 2000s, Raphael Richet. And he loved trailers. He would always be watching and he'd do that trailer. And you know how people sit around and think, oh, I want to make that movie. I want to make that into a movie. I want to make that. He would always he'd go, oh, I want to make a trailer of that. Oh, it's like he didn't even want to make the movie. He just wanted to make the trailer of it. And I've come around to his position. I think the trailers are the coolest parts of the movies. And I hear people, real movie fans are like, I never watch the trailer because it spoils things. I'm like, yes, gives me the whole movie in a minute or two. That's why I like it.
Wow. I prefer trailers that basically gives you the feeling of the movie, but doesn't spoil anything. And I found that my brother is one of those people that he won't watch. He'll watch one trailer and that's it. He doesn't want to see anything else. He doesn't go into discussions. He doesn't go into group chats about it because he doesn't want anything ruined. I have a buddy of mine who was like, every time a Marvel movie comes out or any superhero connected movie comes out, he sees it like the first day. I tend to see it whenever I get to see it, but he wants to talk about it. And he's practically foaming at the mouth to talk about it. It's like, look, I haven't seen it. I don't want to know anything. But I have a question about this, and I'm not spoiling it by saying this. It's like, but you just spoiled it for me by even bringing up the subject. Now, depending on the movie, it really, how far I'll go into it. So when I was younger, I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know who's directing it. I wanted to know who's acting in it. I wanted to see behind the scenes stuff and all that. And then eventually I would notice it's like, oh, where's that particular scene or where's this particular scene? And it got to the point where I'm taken out of the movie because I'm looking for something that I saw somewhere. And it's like, I don't see it there. Why was it taken out? So as a storyteller, I'm wondering all these things when I really should be sitting there and enjoying the movie.
Right.
So now I watch a couple of trailers and then that's it. I stay away from everything else just to see it and enjoy it.
I understand that 100%, but I watch the trailers and not the movies.
Right.
so it's okay with me that they give stuff away. Howler Mouse, what are your cat's names? Tit Goblin wants to know.
All right, the Lester, the little orange tabby, spotted tabby over here meowing, that is Lester. Lester Sad Eyes McDougal. My wife wanted a cat. Now I'm just going to tell you. I'll just put it out there, right? My wife was dying for a black cat so she could name it Lester Holt. And we ended up getting this tabby, and she still went with Lester. And then the tuxedo cat. There's Lester now going through my stuff. And then the black tuxedo cat who came up behind me and tapped me on the back while I was petting the other one. That is Shiva, and she has chilled out with age very much. She definitely was Shiva the Destroyer in her younger days last year. And Lester's less than a year old. Shiva's probably 13, 14 months, if I had to guess. So, yeah. There they go. Yeah, they're both chilling out over there. But I usually come in and I pick them up. I'm the only one that can pick them up like little babies and pet them, and then get the other one to pet them. And then when they're really good, I use positive reinforcement. I'll take I can make the noise of whipped cream coming out of the can. They hear that, they come running. They both get 2 little dabs if they're having a good night.
Whipped cream.
Yeah.
I noticed Blab is back. It says here.
Lab. I don't recognize that.
It was sort of a Raw competitor. Harvey Award-winning anthology of cutting-edge comics, art, and culture returns to its comic roots with Blab Volume 1 trade paperback. This book features a stellar lineup of contributors. Noah Van Sciver depicts the tragic demise of Crime Does Not Pay editor Robert Woods. That's right. What happened to him? Do you remember, Paulo?
No.
There's a story.
He's not the guy who shot someone. That was the writer.
He was the Crime Does Not Pay editor. I wonder if it's him or someone else. Ryan Heshka recounts the rise and fall of Superman creators Siegel and Schuster. Sasha Velour portrays the making of a film director, F.W. Nosferatu. Children's book. Oh, okay. I wonder if this is all new stuff or not. I haven't seen an issue of Blab in so long.
Sometimes I think they have to tell people that Siegel and Schuster were not inexperienced youths in the industry when they sold the Superman rights away. They got conned, but they were not inexperienced because there's material coming from all the pre-Action Comics magazines.
They were inexperienced youths when they created Superman.
Yeah, but not when they started.
Years before, right?
Yeah, because they had a lot of stuff appearing in New Comics and Adventure Comics before Action Comics #1. They had been in the industry. What they were not used to was dealing with mobsters.
I have 3 cats: Hamilton, Bear, and Nebula.
Here's what I want to end up doing. I want to end up doing a live show, and it's going to be it's going to be called Comics and Cats. We're going to do this. Love it.
Everybody and their cats will show up.
My little one is sleeping in the box right here.
No, he loves every day, and I have no idea if they like lasagna because, like, I watch their cholesterol. They get whipped cream. That's it. Everything else is. Yeah.
What were you saying, Wilson?
Talking about. Go ahead, Wilson. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna say if we do the cats one, I have my little one sleeping in a box next to me right now because I got some new action figures, which means a new box came in, and so of course she gets into the box and stays there the whole day.
Nice. You were talking about movie trailers. For a while there, it seems like a lot of the movies, the entire movie was in the trailers. I've seen it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But there's a movie called Barbarian. Apparently, I was the last person in the world to know about this. I didn't even know it came out in theaters over the summer. But it popped up on HBO Max or something we watched, or I don't know what it was. But we watched the trailer, and it did that thing where it was like the entire movie, it felt like. And I'm like, I don't know if I need to watch this, right? So I looked it up while I was looking at it, and Justin Long is in it. Now, if there's a Justin Long movie, I'm there. Mm-hmm. It was genius. This guy who made the movie and the trailer knew what he was doing. It was the first 15 minutes of the movie, and then while you're watching it, they bring in a whole new cast and a new chapter of the story, and you have no idea what's going to happen. I'm like, they got me. They got me. That is genius. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, that reminds me of how they used to do trailers with the Lethal Weapon movies. They basically gave you the opening of the movie as the trailer, and that usually didn't have anything to do with the overall story. It just pops you into what these characters are doing in their lives in that moment. And they use those for trailers, and I thought that.
I want the old trailers to come back where they're real slow and you have the voice, not the guy who goes in a world. No, way back in the day, like it's 3 or 4 syllable, 3 or 4 words in a sentence and real slow. And then when the trailer's over, you still don't know what the hell the movie's about. You have to go see it.
Manos, the hands of fate.
Manos. Manos means hands. It's the word. Yes, hands of hand. Yeah.
Let me ask Wilson about this. I was talking about this earlier with Paulo. Wonder Woman 204 facsimile edition.
Okay.
But DC has always been good about archiving their material.
Yes.
Back to the Golden Age. This one is printed right from scans of a comic.
Oh, wow.
You can see all the screens are blotchy, it's easy to tell. I mean, that orange is all blotchy.
That kind of worries me because of how good DC has been in the
Yeah.
past.
I was
Now,
just
knowing that
why this issue?
they've moved many times, they moved offices, they moved
That's
their
what Paulo was
archive
saying
stuff.
too. And then
That's the only thing I can
I
think
know
of
they
that.
fired their archivist, but I don't know if he was the digital archivist too.
I
So did
do
they
not
mess up
know.
their whole?
I can see that. I could see, the whole big corporate Warner Brothers, whatever they are now, Nat Geo, whatever, not paying attention, firing people. You get rid of an archivist. The first thing that happens is you don't realize that what they did. I was a digital archivist for Marvel for a long time, and I knew about files that were like, that's not digitized yet, and they're
Right.
telling me, throw this stuff away. It's like, yeah, I can't throw away those CDs. They're in the way. They're in nobody's way. They're in my office on one shelf. Why are you rushing to throw these away? Because they believed in their digital archive so much, though I
Right.
helped put it together, they believed in it so much that they could find anything. And
They
if
didn't
they
want
can't
to see
find it,
CDs.
and if they can't find it there, it has to exist on the tapes. Which it went from, hey Wilson, do you have this CD in an email? 5 minutes later, here's the CD. It went to writing up a ticket that goes to somebody, and then maybe a week later you get your item, because that's more efficient. When it's like, no, you just want to oversee everything
Right.
to the point where it's like someone else is justifying their jobs. The micromanagers upstairs. Oh, I can't believe I'm getting this saucy and angry about it. 25 years later.
Yep.
Because at this point, I don't care. So, so you have someone justifying their jobs and making people do stuff like me. I had to make a report every week on how many comic books we had that came in with the comps and got put into the library. And so it's like, well, we got every issue, and we always keep 5 issues of everything. So I had to generate every week. I had to generate a list of what we had, and I had asked Dan Carr, "Is anyone reading this thing?" Because I'm sending out this list. I don't even get a memo saying they received it, and I realized, and he said, "No, someone is reading it." And it turns out they weren't, because I made a mistake and sent in the file that I had sent the previous week, and no one batted an eye. I was like, okay. So for the next 3 weeks, I sent that same file. Nobody batted an eye. So I just stopped sending them. Did that contribute for me being let go? I don't know. I don't care. But it just seemed like you're making us do work that has no reason being there. It was a waste of time, really.
And it could have even been the original guy who said, make this list and send it to me, got promoted, fired, or left. And nobody told you.
No, because I know who it was, and he was basically useless for the company. He came in just to sell the stuff for Avi. So that's all he was there for. Completely useless, literally micromanager.
But that brings me to the question of why publish this particular issue as a facsimile if all you got is scans?
What's the significance to that particular issue?
Introducing Nubia, it says.
All right, Nubia became very popular, became the next big thing. I do not know why they canceled her regular series, other than, again, the new people owning it, the new president that's running stuff. I think was cutting down. Nubia has the ability to become bigger than Wonder Woman herself. And I think she was becoming too popular. So I bet you that issue was on the production schedule before they realized they didn't have the correct files for it. Or conspiracy theory time, and I'm just speaking out of my ass. She could be more popular than Wonder Woman herself. So they're going to give out an inferior product so that character can die a death because they don't want her to be that popular. But again, I'm just speculating at this point. Why
the the way that they launched Nubia, they launched Nubia after the popularity was gone, and now they published that when nobody cares about Nubia anymore. The problem here is that Wonder Woman is never as popular as everybody seems to believe, and a Wonder Woman spin-off is never going to be popular. The new Wonder Girl, nobody cares either. The people who want to have a female character, that's why they've been publishing 50 Harley comics a month, is because the only female character that sells is Harley Quinn.
Wonder Woman is more popular as a pop culture, is more popular in pop culture than in comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, completely. But speaking to people,
neither Nubia nor the new Wonder Girl reached any
Mirror Universe goatee.
I may shave it because it's just getting way too much white in it.
Yeah.
The rest of the hair is black, but it's just.
What have I missed? Comic Crack, you've missed us trying to figure out exactly why DC, who's very good at archiving their material, would publish a facsimile comic scanned right from a printed comic. Why don't they have their archived material for this?
Because they're trying to kill Nubia as a character. That's why. She was getting too popular, and this past con, there was a Nubia panel. No one talked about it, that it was coming out. It had tons of people. From what I understand, Nubia has a loyal fan base, and every time someone tries to do something with it, DC goes, no, let's not do anything with it. So, and again, these are little background stuff that I've actually seen.
DC happen. Are not doing, and they're not taking Nubia back because they're afraid she might become popular. She never was popular.
Yeah, I see. There's the flaw to me in Wilson's whole plan, or whatever it is, and his hypothesis is that a Wonder Woman character could be popular. Not in comics.
They tried pushing Nubia, it didn't work. They created a new Wonder Girl, it didn't work.
Right.
The thing is, DC at the time, they're not really pushing the most of their characters. That's why they have 50 Batman comics a month. That's why they have 50 Harley comics a month.
Right.
They might as well become Batman and Harley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the problem is that Warner Brothers is ashamed that they own a comic book company, and they don't know what to do with it, so they keep putting out Batman and Superman stuff.
See, saying they're ashamed ascribes them a human emotion.
True.
I don't think they know shame.
Probably not.
Hey,
Paulo, I read another Cecil Pedrosa book this week, says Comic Crack.
Cyril Pedrosa is a French-Portuguese comics artist, and Comic Crack's already shown a couple of his books in his channel, and yeah.
What kind of art style is it?
It depends on the graphic novel. It doesn't have a specific art style.
Oh, okay.
But let me look up Biditech, and I can tell you how much stuff is put out throughout the years.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, the thing is not something that you have that you see a lot of in English.
Okay.
Okay, so Cyril Pedrosa, yeah. So let's see the last things that were published. Okay, the L'Ange d'Or is on what? So L'Ange d'Or.
Three Shadows. Was that the name of a?
Okay, L'Ange d'Or is on volume 2.
Is that the name of a Gilbert Hernandez book? There was something with shadows.
Three Shadows.
I know a lot of people use shadows in their names.
Yeah. I'm just trying to remember
it's
it.
hard to figure out.
Popped into my head, but now I don't remember what it is.
Here it is. Trois Ombres. This is from 2007. Yeah, this one's old. This one was not published in Portugal.
I would say for the most part, there's a real old Disney type of style going on with his art, Wilson. Okay, that's the.
But he has different styles depending on the comic that he's doing. He has a few that kind of look like that would be. if they were published by Drawn and Quarterly, they would be right at home. Other stuff, it looks like is emulating Tardi.
Has Drawn and Quarterly published anything lately? I'm trying to think of the last time I got something from them.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It has been a while.
I don't know. Since I think Drawn and Quarterly should up their game, because I'm anticipating that Fantagraphics is going to become the most relevant U.S. comic publisher in the world in the next few years, and so
I think Drawn and Quarterly
similar
is
publishers,
Canadian, isn't there? Aren't there?
I'm not sure. No,
I think they might be Canadian.
Similar publishers to Fantagraphics, who might publish stuff that Gary Groth likes. They would benefit from Fantagraphics' catalog, because a lot of their stuff gets picked up by the French comics intelligentsia. And that's how you end up with people like Charles Burns getting awards in the Angoulême Festival, because Marvel and DC are going to end up losing a lot of popularity in the coming years. Last year or 2 years ago, Marvel started charging 4 times the amount for licensing that they used to charge to Panini. And Panini has the distribution rights for the rest of the world outside North America. But if it becomes too expensive to put out some things, they're going to lose shelf space. DC are not going to use that shelf space, because DC are never popular enough anywhere to take it up. It's Marvel that's bringing DC along, and whoever publishes at Image and Dark Horse, that stuff is more interesting to the editors that already publish Marvel and DC. So if they lose that space, everyone putting out what would be considered mainstream material in the US suffers. Now, but with the Fantagraphics authors being popular with the Angoulême crowd and with the French publishers, whoever puts out material like that, the Adrian Tomines of the world, they're going to become more relevant internationally, because they're going to start winning Angoulême prizes. So if you want to be a US creator and be internationally well known, you would do better creating your own stuff and getting it published through Fantagraphics or something similar than trying to work for Marvel or DC.
Comic Crack tells us, yes, Drawn and Quarterly is Canadian. They just put out a new Kate Beaton, for example, and a collected of Genevieve Castry. Okay. Yeah, I thought they were Canadian, but I couldn't remember, because I know they published who is it? Seth, Joe Matt, and who's the other one who's also Canadian, who I can't think of. The third one in their group, who I'm like, they were all Canadian. I remember they published them. So let's see. Drawn and Quarterly is out of Montreal, Canada. They release stuff pretty regularly. Got a new book by them a few weeks back. They may have slowed down a bit because costs here have gotten really high. I know I've also noticed that in some of the Drawn and Quarterly stuff, Canada has an arts grant that sometimes Drawn and Quarterly uses to publish stuff. So they get some arts money. Yeah, Seth had a new Palookaville coming out next year from Drawn. Oh, okay. I haven't seen a Palookaville in a while. I haven't seen a Palookaville since she finished Clyde Fans, but it's on my pull list.
Yeah.
So I'll get
Clyde Fans was the last book, the last Seth book to come out in France. They put out a 400-page graphic novel, and it looks very, very big.
Yeah, with this stupid die-cut cover. Let me show you my version of it. Nice package. This is it. Nice package, slipcase. But here's the dumb thing. Clyde Fans.
I remember when you showed this the first time around. Yeah.
You try to read it and you're trying to hold it, and it's like your thumb goes right through the hole. It's so annoying. I'm just like, why did they do this? Other than that, it's nicely printed. No gutter loss. Opens nicely. Just that drives me bonkers. The die. I like the die cut cover. But I see what you're saying. Yeah, it just makes it tougher. I mean, it's nice design. I got no problem with the design. It's just hard to read. It's hard to hold when your thumb goes through it. I'm surprised Seth doesn't tell us to throw out the slipcase.
See, every time you want another hole in a book.
I have that issue. I remember buying that issue. Oh, I'm unlocking memories of a comic book shop that only existed for like 3 months in the South Street Seaport is where I bought mine in New York City when comics were such a big thing. Is that anyone could open a comic book shop because they all thought they were going to make a ton of money, and they opened up one in the South Street Seaport, paid out the nose for rent there, and I bought that issue. I don't even remember the name of the shop.
I actually hated
this. Long enough.
This was around the time people were getting sick already in the early 90s of like fancy covers, you know what I'm saying? But this made me even more mad because as I went through it, it interfered with some art. And I was thinking in my head, what would make sense is whoever's really shot at the big reveal, I knew it was going to be the last page, had the bullet hole dead center in their chest. So when you open it, it loses its effect because you're like, they missed. They missed. They didn't hit him. They got him in the shoulder, you know. But yeah, there's an ad in here where they shot a dinosaur's eye out or something. Yeah.
When a Comic Crack says there's a new issue of Palookaville coming back, this is how the Palookavilles have been printed for the last. Oh, that one's a good one, right through his eye.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to finish my thought. Yeah.
Yep. This is this used to be a regular comic. They started putting them out as these little books, which are pretty cool. But this is why I pull it down. I have to laugh. I laugh because there's always this little band on it with the UPC and your reviews of it. And there's Seth and a little author's thing. But at the bottom of this little band, it says, the artist requests that this band be disposed of upon purchase. So it's like, you can tell it's just ruining his book design. So he hates I usually use them as bookmarks. I don't know why this one is still on here. I usually slide them off and then use them as the bookmark. But it's just funny that his books always say, please remove this band, get rid of it.
That's funny.
Which I think I'll do right now. I won't get rid of it. I'll use it as a bookmark. Boy, this one doesn't want to come off.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you it's a new discovery. I don't even want to know what the words I'm looking for here, but like I picked up some of this comic in the 90s, wasn't real impressed. Paolo's going to know what it is because he's the one on one of my streams told me exactly which TV guide that they first published their comic book in because I have it. I found that box of comics and got so excited because I was going to show you that box of TV guides. Oh, and then when I tried to do it on the Fossil Show, I've been looking around. I don't know what I did with it. But anyway, I've been reading like 90s Topps Comics X-Files like crazy. I've got 3 Reader's Digest with new stories and Ray Bradbury stories on them, and they're actually like pretty good. I mean, in the 90s, I was just kind of like, it felt bland, but no, they're really good. And then I found out one of the biggest headaches they had putting this book out is that the people who were had associated with the X-Files show proper went through every page, every panel with a fine-tooth comb when they were putting it out.
Agreements.
Yeah. So they were going over it and stuff, but these are actually really good. They have the tone and stuff. Well, and I haven't even been trying to collect them. I just keep finding them. Huh?
Are those the movie adaptations or the
Charles Adler? All new stories. These are from the 90s. This book.
I used to buy those. I had a complete set that I sold only recently of the Charles Adler drawn ones, which were okay. I mean, I liked it enough to buy it, but not, reread it. But one of the problems with them, like you said, there were the actors had to approve their likenesses. Mm-hmm. And they didn't like most. I mean, Charles Adler wasn't known for likenesses. So they ended up having to cut and paste the same heads over and over in the story.
Well,
DC
also
had
to
to do that
approve,
with Star Trek.
yeah, I also like to approve the stories and stuff. Right now, when I got those off of eBay, those 3 digests, yeah, just because I ran across them, the guy sent me a bunch of free stuff, and it's a bunch of it's more X-Files stuff, like from Wizard's Inquest magazine. It's got like some little pod game in here. As you can see, I got a little poster of Dana Scully, some kind of checklist for some kind of game they had of X-Files that I never heard of. But I don't know what's going on, man, but it's been like X-Files for like the last 2 months with everything I've been finding and falling backwards into. And then I'm like I said, I finally crack them open and I'm like, they're better than what I remembered. Like, we're not talking Shakespeare here. We're just talking a little sad, if you got if you're tired of watching the X-Files reruns, these will satiate you, make you feel a little bit better,
Yeah, it's very rare that you find a TV-based comic that's actually good.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
bad. That's the review. Not bad.
Do you
Not bad
remember
at all.
do you remember when DC used to have an Alien Nation comic?
I think I had yes,
I have
and
them.
yeah, somebody else put out the book also, and I just went blank because I went Planet of the Apes. It was the same company that put out a Planet of the Apes book too. But Alien Nation, I loved that movie when it came out. I went and watched it about 2 years ago. It was of its era. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
It
Comic
is
Crack
hard.
is asking if this is Terrence Hill. This image is from Superfuzz, but Terrence Hill is better known for playing Trinity and for the movies he did with Bud Spencer.
I used to watch Superfuzz before I'd go to school as a kid. It would be on TBS just in time, right before they started showing their Three Stooges and Little Rascal stuff. Yeah, it's nice.
It's always hard to find a comic book version of something that you really like, and it doesn't really fit all the time. I did that with Star Trek. I try to get all
Yeah.
the Star Treks over the years. The only ones I never really got my hands on was any of the Go Key ones. But it was like the DC ones suffered the problem of the likeness issue. Every actor would approve or disapprove the images. So it got to the point where the artist was drawing the same image over and over again. And that's why it was a lot of just talking heads.
Yeah.
When Marvel had the license, they were a little more free. In order to get the license, they said we would need a little more freedom. And that's why the early Voyages was one of my favorite Star Trek Marvel book. It was because they created a series of Star Trek stories that took place before Kirk, and it was basically the Pike years. And it was interesting because they weren't limited with having to do that approval process. So I always thought those were fantastic because of just the fact of being able to do something like that. They weren't great stories, but they were some key issues in all the Star Trek books Marvel did that I really enjoyed, even down to the point where there was an obvious mistake in the Wrath of Khan, where Khan tells Chekhov, I never forget a face. The thing is that episode of Space Seed, Chekhov wasn't on the bridge crew yet. He wasn't part of, he wasn't even, the actor wasn't even signed on to do Star Trek yet. So that was like a glaring mistake. But in Marvel, they put in just a one panel page thing where it was like, he was not on the bridge crew, but he was a member of engineering when he first joined the Enterprise. And it was just something to patch a little hole in it, where it's like, that's why Chekhov and Khan can have that conversation. And to me, as a big fan of Star Trek, it's like, that was a cool little thing that didn't need to be put in there. And it was like, oh, that kind of fits 20, well, by that point, a 15-year-old hole in the plot. So it was like one of those things where it's like, that was fun. And I'm one of the few people that really enjoyed the X-Men Star Trek stuff because I love a crossover.
That the one
I was about to bring that up. I was about to bring that up. Like, I was going to ask you what you thought of that with all this buildup. You know,
I enjoy the hell out of a crossover. And
did he just punch my starship?
Yes. Even the McCoy jokes, Dr. McCoy, and both Beast and McCoy go, yes, silly, stupid.
Is that
I enjoyed the
that was
hell out
like
of it.
Kurt Busiek and Adam Hughes, right?
Oh, they did.
Now I've got it over here. I want to say it was Mark
Did-
Silvestri.
Mark
No, it was Adam
Silvestri,
Hughes who drew it. I'm pretty sure.
There
But I'm
was
not. I
two of
could
them.
be
There was
wrong.
Next
Who knows?
Generation and the original series. Both did a crossover.
It's in
The
a
graphic
box that
novel.
it's in a box at my feet. If you really want me to look for it,
Yeah, I'm talking about the graphic novel, which was I'm talking about
No,
Star Trek X-Men. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
He just punched my ship because Gladiator punches the Enterprise.
Right.
That's the
Now,
Adam
I
Hughes.
think
I
it's
have a
because
novel.
Mhm.
I have a novel where there's a brief interaction between the original crew and the Next Generation, but that novel's now out of continuity because of the Next Generation movies.
Mhm.
Silvestri did that. Okay, that's not the one I'm
Yeah,
thinking of.
Silvestri did that one.
The one I'm thinking of was a hardcover graphic novel.
I've got it here somewhere. That was just a graphic novel with William
Right.
Shatner on the cover, and I think Adam Hughes did the art in that one.
Right.
But I'd have to dig through my shelves.
Right.
I think it was Chris Claremont and Adam Hughes.
You're right. It may have been Chris Claremont. Now that
And it's a hard read. I made it 3 or 4 pages, and I'll revisit this. Okay.
I just remember. Did he just punch my starship? I remember that line. That's all I remember from it. But these were my favorite of the X-Files. This was not the regular series that Charles Adler drew. These came out in '97. I only got 3 of them. I'm not sure why. It could be because it was hard to put on a pull list because each one is its own thing.
Yeah.
It's not like there's numbers in a series.
Is it a Bigfoot story in one of them?
These ones were adaptations of the actual episodes.
They got behind. They actually were going to start doing an adaptation of every episode, and something happened where they got behind and they got rid of it. Topps only had the license from the 2nd season to about the 5th season, so that would be the last season they had the license.
Yeah, so this is all season 1 stuff, and it's what is it? Ice is the name of that episode.
I'd have to get the Luke. I'd have to get the Luke the worm.
Right.
Worm Man.
These were good. Like this one is drawn by John Van Fleet in this sort of Jean Paul Leon graphic style with watercolor in it. This one was really nicely done. I don't know whatever happened to this. I remember his name, John Van Fleet. I don't know how many comics he ever did, but that one was really nice. This one is done by drawn by Claude St. Aubin and Rick Magyar. Once again, this one, I like the Van Fleet stuff better, but it was okay.
Yeah, the coloring, like I said, they had the garish grays and yellows and stuff. I wouldn't even call those secondary colors, I guess. But it definitely fit the mood of the 90s X-Files, what they did. Yeah.
And this one is Val Mayrick and Rick Magyar. But I remember, I haven't read these since then, but I remember liking these. And I wanted to get more. I somehow just never did. Got to change out these 1997 bags. And then there was another series. What does it say? I think this is when the show came back in 2009.
I love that you just had those right there. This was not planned, folks.
No, I pulled them down. So there was a 6-issue series from Wildstorm in 2009.
Now, we'll stay. I mean, I'm not trying to get away from X-Files. We'll come back, but Wildstorm ended up doing my second favorite, and it's sort of kind of like while Wilson was talking about how he liked that Star Trek book, it actually enhanced the show. It was like a prequel, a couple, prequel stories and stuff. But Wildstorm put out some supernatural comics and stuff.
Too.
Yeah, I enjoyed those. And then I come to find out one of the producers of the show was the guy writing them. And there's a little, I guess after they got past the 5th season, there was 1 or 2 things that didn't fit anymore. But by this point, I'm like, I don't care. These are fantastic. Lilith actually lived and was screwing around with her dad when they were kids. And she's coming down the steps, and she looks like a beautiful woman, but her shadow is of Demon Lilith,
Have you seen the new Winchester's show?
No. I've gotten to the point with a lot of this stuff. I'm real picky. I want to. I want my memory to stay not be tainted of how they were. We're at a point in life where over the last 10 years they brought back a lot of stuff, revisited things like that, and you should know better. But, we're not talking. You know what I mean? Like you should learn. Now, I will say, with that said, I'm going to be watching the Willow Disney TV show that's coming. I'm excited about that. And then I just got through last night watching the Christmas Story Christmas, the actual sequel to the movie Christmas Story, and it came together very well. So it's not all bad when they do this stuff.
Willow, I can't help but here's a story that has nothing to do with comics.
The ironic title returns. Yeah.
Back in my art school days, my friend Ed, who I've mentioned here many times, I went to art school with, and he had a crush on this girl who lived on campus in one of the on-campus apartments near us, and her roommate had a crush on Ed. So here we get Ed has a crush, girl has a crush on Ed, Ed has a crush on this girl's roommate.
Because love sucks. Yeah, because he loves her and she loves him, but she wants somebody else. Yeah.
And it was at the time when Willow was, I forget what year it was, late
88, 1988, sir.
Must have been 88 when Willow came out. And there was a tie-in with McDonald's where McDonald's was giving away Willow placemats. So you go to McDonald's, you get your burger, bring your Willow placemats home, and you eat your dinner on your Willow placemats. All right? So now Ed is telling his friend, this girl who has a crush on him, that he has a crush on her roommate. And this girl goes, "Oh no, not her, Ed. She's so boring. You have no idea how boring she has. She has Willow placemats." And forever on, I have no idea what that girl's name was. She became Willow placemats in our lore.
I love it. I love it.
Willow placement. That's the definition of boring is having Willow placemats.
That's hilarious. Women, you can walk into a bar, club, whatever, and as long as you have like some kind of fashionable piece of clothing, hat, whatever, to make you stand out, women will notice you. With me, a girl with Willow placemats would have sparked my interest.
You would not have thought she was boring. You would have been like, "Ooh, Willow placemats. How interesting."
Yeah. Like you were there.
Are you a fan of Willow? Because I sure like this movie.
So do you like midgets? You like midgets? Oh,
Did Marvel do a comic book adaptation of
Yeah.
Yes.
I got I can't remember if it was a super special or an actual graphic novel. It's on my shelf. Then they broke it down to 2 or 3 issues in the comic. I got all those. Well, see, what's great about Willow being into a TV show, there's not a lot of lore there. George Lucas kind of came up with that story in early 73, probably when he may have actually been smoking pot and read Lord of the Rings like everybody else. And then he made the movie. And I remember this interview where he said it. I don't think I've seen it like on Wikipedia or anything when I was trying to look up.
It.
Yeah. But he just made the movie. It was when the movie came out. I remember seeing the interview where he said, "Well, I've got some computer technology I wanted to try out. So I figure let's make a movie." That was the whole point. There's a scene where the sorceress is turning a man or men into like different animals with computer morphine and all this stuff like that.
Find stuff out.
And that's why the movie. That's why he handed it off to Ron Howard to direct and stuff. He just wanted an excuse to try this technology, and then he sold him off as Pixar. He was like, "Okay, I did it." That's why the movie wasn't a huge blockbuster.
The early Buffy comics felt like they did. I read like season 8 and 9 of Buffy. Then I kind of got bored with it, but they were solid.
I'm glad he said that because somehow this ended up in my collection. I bought a box of stuff at a yard sale, and this Buffy stuff is in there. And I had some variant covers of it.
Jeff D is about to watch the Christmas Story sequel tonight. You see, that's one. I don't know if I'm going to watch that, but I might.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you why I liked it, because at the beginning of it, and I'm not going to spoil anything. There's no spoilers here, but at the beginning of it, you find out they're in 1973, right? And as for one, I don't know if it was by accident or design, but the further the movie goes, the more it starts feeling like the old movie. I mean, it was really cool. By the beginning of it, I was like, I don't know about this, and then like an hour into the movie, it's like you're back. You know, they did really well.
One of the things I noticed about the Winchesters, which is also supposed to take place in 1973, I think they're color grading it to try and look like 1970s film stock.
That would be cool, but did they ever explain how this could even happen? Because if you watch the Winchesters, the dad never. First of all, when the show started, there were no such thing as hunters, and then when they came around in season 2, they made more hunters, like it always been around, and then they had it to where you find out that the wife that died, you know, his wife, Winchester's mother, and her family, they were hunters, but the dad never knew about it. So now they're doing a Winchester show where all that's out the window. So did they ever explain that?
They may have. I haven't paid that close attention to it.
I haven't even tried it, just because of the same reason that you had. It's like, I got their story. I got the little bit of the back stuff during the years. I don't know if I need to watch a prequel.
Yeah.
To them
There's
as kids.
There's a few characters who are fun.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the 2 leads are sort of the least fun characters.
I've come up with a term for that. That's the Titans effect. The Titans TV show is like everything that happened in the show was great except the actual Titans. You know, I'm like,
the Titans. Remember the Titans.
So when I just found this, when this I grabbed this Buffy thing.
I don't remember this series at all.
Huh?
This X-Files from 2009. I don't remember this at all.
I think the movie came out a year or 2 before. I don't know. There's some stuff that came out through Wildstorm, and I remember a movie adaptation, and then they tried to get it going. I don't know, but I got Rolling Stone magazines framed from the 90s of the X-Files. I got the TV guide. I was one of the people that actually wrote into the show when they canceled it on season 1. I wrote into a local Fox affiliate on the Kentucky-Virginia line. Only time I've ever sent a letter out like that.
Daisy, who's been on our show with us before, she went as Dana Scully one Halloween, I remember.
What year was this?
Sometime in the mid-90s.
Well, you can let her know I would have been up all up on her with if I had too many drinks. Yeah. In the 90s, yeah. No. So I just found this when I grabbed that Buffy book and the stuff fell on the floor. But when I was playing around with trying to do Inktober, I did like a little thing at work on typing paper because the prompt was bat. So remember, this is like a 20-minute doodle while I'm eating, you know, my mouth full. But I tried to recreate the 1972 Batman costume. Hold
on, I gotta make that bigger.
This is me trying from memory doing a 1972 Batman costume. That's supposed to be a mask with wisps of hair because you know hippies back in the day. So that's my lunch break at work one day. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, you're so nice. Yeah. I remember that costume up until like 79 and 80 when I was a kid because somebody actually wore it to school and they said it was their big brothers. It was a hand-me-down.
And remember, kids, don't use tape on your comic bags. Use removable labels. Choking on nothing.
So if you guys want to go back in time even further, I showed this when I bought it, but I looked in it and there's been a few things and stuff. But Peter David and John Byrne had maybe 1 or 2 books. I can remember. I know he definitely had Fear book, I think, right? But Peter David has tons of Star Trek novels that he does. And then he had I think this was his second proper book called Howling Mad. And the concept is a werewolf fights a wolf out in the wild, and when the full moon comes out, he turns into a human.
My friend Rob has all of Peter David's Star Trek books. He used to collect like Star Trek paperbacks. For years and years, he had like every Star Trek paperback until he had like shelves filled with them. And he finally went, I'm getting rid of these and keeping the Peter David ones. They're my favorites that I'll reread.
I want to get his return. He had a book called Nightlife before. This is from '89. He had a book called Nightlife, and I heard about that in high school. And it was so funny because I kept saying Peter David, and I'm like, no way. I thought it was two guys, not the same guy.
Yeah.
But then that Return of the Swamp Thing movie came out, and I laughed at how bad it was, but I kind of thought it was cool. They still pulled in some Alan Moore stuff, laughing about it. And then all of a sudden I started hearing about Peter David again. This is what I found out. This is that Peter David. He wrote a novelization of that movie that is better than the movie.
Really?
Yeah. He said he framed it and he went through all the techniques he did, and people were like, why didn't they make this movie?
I do know that speaking of Peter David, I'm almost sure it's Peter David. There is a couple of issues of the X-Men where the Beast is reading a book and he's reading a Peter David book. And I don't know, and I do not know who put that in there. If Peter put that in himself, or if the artist just tossed that in there. I never went to look up the book, but I do know I did look it up in the sense of, oh yeah, Peter David did write a book that was out around that time, and the artist just put it. And again, it's a throwaway panel where the Beast is reading something and they're talking. And I'm looking, it's like, that's very detailed for a book cover. And then you see the name clearly. It's like, oh, that's pretty neat. I wonder who actually put that in there.
See, this is what I love. You guys talk about things that pops a memory. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But I remember being like 7 years old. I'm getting over my fear of Kirby art, my phobia, if you will. Get rid of that neurotic little thing. And I'm flipping through an issue of Commandy, and I'm loving my Commandy. I think it was my uncle's copy, right? And I turned the page and he's reading a DC comic, The Demon. And I'm like, oh, wow. That was like, for 7 years old, I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. Is that Commandy's a comic book reader and that's a real comic, I loved when stuff like that went on. Then there's an issue of Amazing Spider-Man during the McFarlane years.
I know.
With Supergirl.
I was about to just tell you that. Spider-Man's favorite comic book character is Supergirl.
Yeah. So
it looks like there were 3 Supernatural series: 07, 08, and 2010. We've got Supernatural Origins.
Yep.
Which this I think was the flashback to their father.
Uh-huh.
This was
they're running through the woods chasing the deer because their dad made them.
We've got Supernatural Rising Sun.
Yeah.
I guess this is them growing up. There they are with their dad as kids. And then we've got Supernatural Beginnings End. So here they are as, older teens teaming up with their dad.
And I got to see if I finished that. I don't know which box it's in, but I thought if you were a Supernatural fan, those books are great.
They were solid books. I enjoyed them.
I don't know how it would be if you never watched Supernatural, didn't know a little bit of the lore and picked them up. But for, to be watching the show and to have that stuff, it was fantastic.
Photo covers on the last series, it looks like.
But let me tell you something, that last series you showed, The Beginnings End or whatever, I can't remember, but it seems like it tied into the show tighter than the other two. And brother, that was hard to get. And that's when that's when it dawned on me, those are some mighty fine looking men. It's not just,
Oh yeah. Models fight monsters. I know some of the ladies called it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where the books were going. You had some,
One of my favorite lines from the X-Files was there was an episode, I don't remember which one, where Mulder's body got taken over by someone.
Lenny. It got by Lenny from Laverne and Shirley. Yeah.
Was that it? And he's looking in the mirror going, "You're one fine-looking man," or something like that.
Yeah. That was one of the few episodes where I'm like, how are they getting out of this? I was like, they had me where I was like, how are they going to fix all this? And if you watch the show, you find out that he was a porn addict. Like in that episode you're talking about when he's going through the apartment,
Yeah.
he opens up and he finds where Mulder's like got this room just full of all this junk. There's a porn collection in there supposedly.
Yeah.
There's a episode where they're talking about those dirty phone calls you can make and stuff. And they knew Fox by name when he accidentally called it. There's like little tiny things where you have to like get a microscope and pay attention, and you'll see it sprinkled throughout.
I think that's when the guy bought a waterbed.
I think so. He got Scully in there and it was like, come on over. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how she figured out it wasn't Mulder. So what people read in the subtext is that she knew because they already slept together, is what they were saying. She knew, you know what I mean? Like if she had kissed Fox, she would have known that wasn't him because that's not how he kissed, even though it's his body, So,
and the last issue of Shaolin Cowboy, Cruel to Be Kin, 7 of 7 came out this week. And it starts right on the inside front cover.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It goes all the way to the back cover. But I'm just not a huge fan of physical Dark Horse comics. Like they're self-covered, the paper's thin. Love this Jeff Darrow content. But if this wasn't Jeff Darrow, I probably wouldn't. I'm just not a huge fan of their flimsy comics. But in this issue, he continues to fight these giant monsters. He's fighting a giant pig. And he's fighting this on the cover giant guy who's this centipede thing. And it's just like every issue of Shaolin Cowboy, there's huge fight scenes in it, and they're crazy. And Jeff Darrow just puts all sorts of eye candy in there, and there's stuff in the background, and there's stuff everywhere. And the guys just continue to fight and die and come back alive and fight some more, and limbs get chopped off. It's a visual feast, is what.
Forget the plot, because there's no plot.
Yeah,
there's no plot in them. That's why I don't get them. I love the artwork, but there's no plot.
I finally came to accept that. I used to not get them just because there's no. I'd be like, yeah, it's kind of the same. But then finally, like a few years, this I think this may be, or did I get the one before this? I can't remember. This may be the first one I actually bought month to month, and I've just really enjoyed it. I read it one time through, and then I read it the next time through with a magnifying glass, where I just look at the stuff. Because there's so much to look at.
Well, I wouldn't be making a comparison, and I think and I wouldn't be doing this if you hadn't brought it up and it popped in my head, but I want to say like Shaolin Cowboy, if you like it, and you want something with a minimal plot that still doesn't really matter, it helps with the world building, you want to see like people just kicking ass and all that stuff, go get Jack Kirby's OMAC.
Oh, that's oh, yeah.
Okay. We may have discovered a new genre where it's just a fight scene, but we'll give it a little bit of a framing. You know what I mean? Shaolin Cowboy, we just get the fight scene. Don't worry about the framing. Yeah.
The framing in OMAC is, this is the future. Okay, what happens next? The Earth blows up.
30 guys jump OMAC. OMAC yells at Brother Eye, give me more power. Next issue. 50 guys show up. He yells at Brother Power. Kicks butt. What happens in the third issue? A giant monster comes at him. He yells at Brother Eye.
Give me more power.
I want to recommend a manga my wife showed. Oh, anybody else? I don't want to jump.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. But I wanted a manga. My wife turned me on to this. I read the first one. It's completed. I think there's like 11 or 12. And my wife has got a pretty good manga collection going, but I love seeing her process, her evolution as a collector. It mirrors what we've been through. I love it. And now she discovered something. We were at Books A Million last weekend. And I didn't know to tell her or not, but they've taken 3 volumes at a time and they put them in beautiful hardbacks compared to these.
Right.
And I caught her in the living room just looking at her row of these books on the shelf, being like, I cannot believe I finally found that last one. And then they do this. And I'm sitting here going, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly. I can't tell you how many times I might have started Akira in different formats because it kept coming out in a better looking format where it's like I can't deal with this anymore because you have like I have my original Akira books that Marvel put out on their Epic up to a certain point because it didn't really finish. It finished, but didn't really finish.
Right.
And then every few years, a publisher will start them. And I know when Dark Horse had them, I was really tempted, and I may have gotten the first one. And then recently is like the last 5 years or so.
2018. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Then you have that mega set that Kodasha Books put out. That is like that is an amazing, beautiful looking box.
It's on my
set.
Amazon wish list.
Is it?
I'm not
And it's
sure,
like,
but
oh,
I think I'm getting that for Christmas. I'm
The
not
box
sure.
set?
I found a set for $112 on Amazon. Continue,
Yeah.
Wilson. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm looking at that set, and then at the same time, I also have the original Japanese collection that I inherited from Marvel, because those are the ones that because they're all full of little red flags.
Yeah.
Where you could see where they must have been doing things like that. So it's like, so I have the original Japanese trade paperbacks, black and white, and I think the whole set that I got from Marvel because again, the book's done, toss these out. It's like I'm not tossing out books. So I took them home. And it's like each book has like a different color banner on it, and it's like they're just amazing. They're up on the bookshelf here at the very top, so I don't touch them and ruin them with my gubby hands because they were used in production, so they're not in the greatest condition because they kept opening and closing them.
I remember pasting up a lot of those issues of Akira.
Do you have the last 2 issues of the Epic?
No. I do not have any of my Epic Akiras left because I ended up getting rid of them a few years ago because I didn't bother. But by the time matter of fact, I can remember distinctly when because Marie Javins was the editor on Akira. When the last issue finally came out, and she was like, "Anybody want a copy of the last issue of Akira?" And nobody cared. No, and I had because it had been 5 years. I had long since stopped caring.
Yeah.
So I never got those last issues either. So I said to myself, you know what? I may as well get some money for my Marvel Akiras, and I'll get because I know it's out in collected edition now. I'm like, because I am never gonna pay top dollar to get those last few issues. That's not going to happen. So I got rid of, I had the first, 35 issues or whatever it was, but not
I think it was last week, but I looked them up on eBay and I looked them up on Comic Book Realm and a few other things. The last 2 issues of Akira at that time, just last week, were going for $200 to $400 and everything in between.
The 35 issues I had of Akira would go for less. The whole chunk of them, all 35, go for less than one of those last 2 issues. That's why I was like, I'm never going to buy them. So why not get rid of these ones and one day get a collected edition?
Yeah, I couldn't get over those last 2 issues being worth a lot.
Yeah.
So
when did they print
no one ordered them.
Those last 2 issues.
I want to say late 90s. I don't know, 97. I'm not sure, but
it was years afterwards.
Yeah,
because there was I think, like you mentioned, like a 5-year gap in between the previous issue and then those last 2 finally came out, and because of that, I had stopped buying it at a certain point. But I love those books. I had stopped buying Akira. I don't know exactly when, but I had stopped. And then the original ones that I had, those first few, I read them over and over again. So those books are clearly loved and read. So that's why I never bothered selling those. And as far as the ending of it, I have no idea. I could very well have a box with those last 2 issues in there or not.
I was actually bored with it by the end, too, because they just kept blowing up Neo Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Neo Tokyo is about to explode. It's exploded 3 times.
Yeah. Because I'm almost sure I was at Marvel for that last issue to be published.
It was a late... Listen, I was so disinterested, I didn't take a copy for free.
Yeah, I don't... If we got them in our bundles, then I have it, but I
We
have
did
no
not
idea.
get them in our bundles.
Oh, we didn't. Okay.
No.
So then, no, I probably don't have them.
When I was a kid, you'd get these Japanese cartoons on television, the movies and things like that. And even on Nickelodeon, they had like one show where it did this, but I couldn't stand how the mouths would go. You know what I mean? Like when they were talking over 'em. Until I saw a movie called Warriors of the Wind when I was like 11, which was a bad adaptation of Studio Ghibli's Nausicaa of the Wind.
Mhm.
And to me, this is the end all be all. This is like my absolute favorite in across all genres and stuff, right? So imagine going from this to Akira like 3 years later.
Yeah.
And Akira blew me away. I wanted that motorcycle. I was like,
Oh,
what is
yeah.
going on? I didn't understand everything that I was watching, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Right.
So to hear you guys sitting here saying you guys were at Marvel and you did this and you did that and had all that stuff, I think I'm having I think it's taken years that Jared, but I think I'm finally a little jealous. I think I'm feeling something that I'm not familiar with. That's got to be it, you know.
We used to, because like I said, we'd be pasting up Akira. And what we'd have to do is we'd get it wasn't the original art. It was like copies of the original art, the black plate. And the balloons were all there. And we just had to paste the new lettering down in the balloons. There is not a lot of dialogue in Akira. And a lot of times it's just them shouting each other's names. So there used to be like 3 or 4 of us pasting up an issue of Akira, and we'd be shouting out the balloons as we pasted them down. Akira,
I have a question.
Tetsuo!
I have a question since you guys are. What about the sound effects? Because a lot of people are complaining with that massive last collection that came out. They kept the Japanese characters, lettering, whatever I'm supposed to call it, of the sound effects. And you have to go to another page in the book, like mini manga, to get the translation. So when you were doing this pasting and stuff, were you the one doing the sound effects?
We were pasting down the sound effects. The letterer actually did the sound effects.
So did they do an accurate translation? That's what I'm going for. How accurate was it? Okay.
I have no idea.
I lettered manga.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks, man.
I lettered a ton of manga for various companies: Central Park Media, Media Blasters,
Viz. Jimmy Viz.
No, I never did Viz.
Okay.
The one DC's Wildstorm, they had an imprint also, and from when I was lettering them, the sound effects is part of the artwork, so we weren't allowed to touch it because that would be editing the art. So depending on the company, we can have a sound effect adjacent to the sound effect, and our standing was not to overpower anything. So you just wanted it translated. And so we would receive in the script, we would be told what the sound effect would be. So if this is a bam, this is a boom, smash, crash, and then we would put it on there, and then put it on there to be part of the art. So it needed to look like a comic book sound effect, but it wasn't allowed to clash with anything else. So you had to kind of had to hide the sound within the other sound effect, or at least within the art, enough to read it. Now, there were times where there would be other companies that would just put the sound effect in the same text that they would put the lettering in,
like,
and it would just say smash. Yes.
I remember seeing that.
So you would have it like that too. It really depended on the company and the company's budget. Because making a sound effect takes a lot longer than the text itself. Because the text itself is just, you could copy and paste. Where the sound effect, you're creating art at that moment, and you could only spend so much time working on that artwork. So it really depended on the company.
Yeah, when Marvel was doing Akira, they were spending money on it because they had it all computer colored by what's his name?
Steve Olive.
Right, and that was the first computer coloring too.
They Americanized it, which meant they had to flop everything And that's when they also art corrected the sound effects out of it and then paid a
Okay.
lawyer to make the sound effects.
That's
And Atomo had to approve it all too. So they would send it back to him and he'd, say, oh no, do this or approve that or this or that. So Marvel spent some money on their Akiras.
I'm telling you what, man, that late 80s, early 90s going into all that stuff was just a magical time, man, where it's just everything was great. I'm going out on the reader side of this, remembering this stuff coming out and hearing about all this stuff, man. I'm like, man, it was just, you just knew it was cool. You never thought you'd look back on it and be like, oh, that was cool,
Akira came out when I was in college still. And then when I was at Marvel, I actually got to work on it. So
it's the first thing. I know it's where it came over. It was made in Japan, and we'd seen other stuff, and we were not cut off from, we'd seen, our samurai movies, our Bruce Lee movies. We saw stuff from over there and stuff. But there was just there was something about Akira where you were watching something that felt completely original, and it was cyberpunk. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
right.
I don't want to act like, first time you see a Mickey Mouse cartoon or something, but something about Akira came out was fresh. It felt new. It felt like the future. I was a fan of Blade Runner.
It felt high tech.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where you just saw something that's like every one of your senses were engaged. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And then it would haunt you. Like, I don't think I understood exactly what I watched, so you would go back. It made me try to look up Japanese cinema to try to understand what was going on.
The movie first or the comic?
I saw the movie first,
okay,
and then I didn't see I never saw the comic until probably I want to say 92 or 3.
Yeah, the movie didn't make much of an impression on me because I had been reading the comic.
Well, I was hungry for something new at the same time. There's this thing where I was wanting, I was listening to hair bands. Mm-hmm. It was all DC and Marvel that I was like reading into. I was missing the heavy metal and that both in the music and the magazine. I was missing stuff like heavy metal that I read when I was a kid. Does that make any sense?
I would guess what probably happened because I'm remembering back and what I was getting from manga when I was looking for manga, because once I discovered it, it's like, oh, this is different than anything else.
Yeah.
But there wasn't much out when I started. So
there wasn't.
Dark Horse had the Psychic Girl. That was interesting. That
wasn't Dark. I think that was first. That wasn't Dark Horse,
or that was Eclipse.
That was first comics, I think.
Was it first?
The Psychic Girl and Kamui.
Okay, so that was my introduction to that type of stuff.
Me too.
To manga. And then anime was starting to become a big thing. But a lot of the anime we were getting was leftover stuff from the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what happened is there was a jump that we went from 70s to 80s.
Yeah.
And then Akira is part of that 80s manga, which is completely different than anything else we were getting. I agree with you there. So we were getting like the Spanish stations had Cyborg 009 or 008. There was this one with a train. I can't remember the name of it right now. Something Express, but it was in Spanish. But that was the only things that I was getting. And then there was the leftovers from like Gotcha Man, which was Battle of the Planets. So that's all 70s stuff.
We went from I Love Lucy to Seinfeld with nothing in between.
And nothing in between. I think that's what happened there, is that we were getting some stuff that was leftovers from the 70s. Bubblegum Crisis, I remember, was one that I was getting into anime, and then some of the robot stuff. But Akira was just something different, and I think that's a great analogy from that.
Yeah, and I think you nailed what I was trying to say, trying to get out of my mind there. It's like I started out with Battle of the Planets, real sketchy, great action and stuff, right? Then we got to that stuff that I couldn't stand where the mouths were like this. Right. And then they were cut up because they were American, bad dubbing, the older stuff. I would see the better stuff in the cable of the 90s, Girlfriend by Matthew Sweet pulled in Cobra, things like that. So when I saw Akira, this was the first thing that felt like a big budget movie. You know what I mean? Like
it may have been one of the first current Japanese animation things that we saw.
Yeah.
Like you said,
because there was no
animation stuff we saw was 10, 20 years old.
See, I
Yeah,
had Shogun Warriors when I was a kid, and then they had this guy, and I'd Google it if I wasn't using my phone, but this one guy bought 4 or 5 shows from Japan, little kid TV shows from the 70s, and it was syndicated in um, New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. So I had like these gigantic robot violent shows and stuff. There was robot women whose tits were torpedoes and all this stuff, Manger. Oh my God. Yeah, this was the stuff I loved as a kid. And then I got that crappy stuff until Akira came. And it was like, yeah.
Paulo, what was the first Japanese animation to hit Portugal?
Future Boy Conan.
What was that?
Future Boy
Conan.
Is that Astro Boy with a new name?
No, it was actually before my time, because the first thing I saw was we had some very weird European co-productions. Those were made in Japan, but they were paid for by European studios. So Future Boy Conan was Japanese, but it was before my time. I don't remember watching it. But then I was watching stuff that was something called Belle and Sebastian, which was about a kid going from Spain to France to find his mom, and he had a giant Saint Bernard dog with him, and he was being chased by the police because he was running away from something. Then we had the stuff from BRB International, so it was a Spanish studio, but everything was animated in Japan, and we had funny animals portraying the Three Musketeers. It was called Dog. In English, it was called Dogtanian. And we had Around the World with Willy Fogg, which was a version of Around the World with 80 days. But those were they were played by animals. So Dogtanian was mostly dogs. And Around the World with Willy Fogg, it was Phileas Fogg was turned into a lion, and Passepartout was turned into a cat.
I think I've seen this.
So you didn't get any straight up Japanese animation stuff like Battle of the Planets or whatever else came over here in the 70s?
Battle of the Planets, I think it was on around the 80s, but I didn't see it. Okay. The most futuristic stuff we had was called Ulysses 31, but even that was made by the guys who produced Inspector Gadget.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's the Japanese. Yeah, so that I want to throw this out here just because like the audience or somebody might know, because like I'm gonna give it a shot. I've got the obscure stuff first. It's always the English guys that help me out. It turns out, right? But anyway, Showtime in like 80 and 81, maybe 82, would show these 90-minute Japanese cartoons, and they were from the 70s, and it was all either, if it wasn't just like giant robots were actually in the background. But the big thing was it was all about it was kind of like racer. It was all about dog fights and jet fighter planes and stuff, right? And all this stuff being a pilot. And the biggest thing was is they would do a loop and come up behind their enemy that was just chased them. That was the big move. But it had this mystery where it was like you had a guy who looked like Destro from G.I. Joe before there was G.I. Joe. He was the man in the iron mask, and he was secretly the other pilot's dad. Nobody remembers it. No idea what it was. And I know it was on Showtime.
It almost sounds like Robotech, but I don't think it is.
Now this thing was like 80, 82 when Showtime was showing it. So it was probably from the 70s. No doubt in my mind,
We had a lot of Japanese anime movies, not series, movies in rentals. And I remember I saw a few of them. And I even saw the Japanese Lensman movie. I remember watching it, although I don't remember much about it. But I remember watching it. I remember the name Lensman, and it was only in the 90s that first we had a few. So we had, for some reason, we had Anne of Green Gables. Then we had an actual Three Musketeers adaptation. and then all of a sudden we started getting real Japanese stuff, and Dragon Ball started showing on TV around 1995, and I tried to watch it, and I thought, no, we had Sensei before that. Sensei was before that, and I hated it. Dragon Ball was on TV. I watched it. I thought it was stupid, but everyone in the country stopped what they were doing to watch it.
Did you say Dragon Ball Z?
No, Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Before they showed Dragon Ball, then Z. By the time
Dragon Ball Z in the early 2000s was so big in the Marvel bullpen that it used to drive me crazy that people wouldn't stop.
I wish.
I was trying to avoid it, but all my schoolmates insisted on letting me know what was going on in the episodes. I didn't care. Yeah. So by the time we got to Dragon Ball Z, and I was making fun of them. So did planet Namek explode yet?
This was, I think Chris Caruso, who else? Brian Smith, Jacob Chabat, Paul Citrone, and a bunch of other, like I said, my goodness. And it turns out, if you watch Dragon Ball Z, the only discussion to be had is who can beat who in a fight, because that's what the entire show is about.
Yeah.
See, I wish I could
watch that series.
Well, I didn't watch the series either, but I'm gonna tell you why. I wish I could paint the picture, but if you look up your G.I. Joes and you got like the Marauders, more like whoever the biker gang was, there's one named Monkey Wrench. That's what my stepdad looked like. Now, I hadn't seen him in years, and for some reason I had to stop at his place. He was actually living with my brother, and I walk in and you got this. He looks like a biker with no bike. Basically, what's going on? And he's a porn fiend. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. So I walk in and I see this row of VHS tapes against the wall in his cluttered up house. And I'm like, I look at my brother and I'm like, oh God, is that what I think it is? He went, no, it's Dragon Ball Z. And I went, what? He's like, he loves Dragon Ball Z. That's every episode. I was like, did he buy him? He's like, no, he recorded them himself.
The anime plane show aired in Canada when I was a kid, called Thunderbirds 2086.
Oh, cool.
Howler Mouse's memory.
I need to write that down.
Thunderbirds 2086.
See, it paid off, man. I got obscure and it might have paid off.
Were the Thunderbirds the ones who were like puppets?
Thunderbirds
the Trace.
Go.
That's what?
Thunderbirds are Go.
Thunderbirds are Go. That was from like the 60s, though, right?
Yeah, they were puppets, and then whenever they close up on the hands for the controllers, they were human hands.
I'll show you something. I'll show you something.
Thunderbirds Go. Thunderbirds 2086.
Oh, and those G.I. Joe characters he was talking about are the Dreadnoughts. Those were the biker gangs that was part of Zartan's. Nice. That's the
Tracy Island.
Let's give you a solo layout so we can see it. Oh, is that Thunderbird Island?
Yeah, I can't remember what all it does, but one of the ships come out here. All right. Of course, it's not going to do it now. But anyway, somewhere I saw the box. I've got the sub here and stuff like that. It's Tracy Island. And this was my first video I did. I was sitting around back like in 2014 waiting on this girl I was dating. We were going to go geocaching. And I looked over on my counter because I just moved into this house. And there's my Thunderbirds toys. So while I'm waiting on her, I set up my phone of all things. And I just do this video on my Thunderbirds movie toys. And it went viral. We got like 12,000 hits. I was like, what's going on? And people were correcting me. They were like, it's not Thunderbirds Island. It's Tracy Island. I'm like, excuse me,
The best way to get feedback is by being wrong on the internet.
Well, I was sitting there like I reached a point where I was actually taking some time with my videos and getting them out, at a regular pace and really, making sure I was, telling stories and being real. And then I'm just sitting there in the kitchen waiting for my girlfriend to come over. I'm like, oh, look, toys, 12,000 hits. I'm like, what?
That makes me want to put a video together with, just my hands and toys and make them fight each other. I'll get you, Batman. No, you won't, Captain Cold. Bam, bam, bam.
It'll be like the 60s cartoons again, except with the toys. So surprisingly enough, I got a comic book this week.
All right. What did you
I
get?
haven't read it,
Let's see. We'll give you a solo layout so we can see.
Amazing
Ooh.
Spider-Man number 12. My brother happened to go to a comic book shop to pick up some toys.
That's
I was
the
like,
one you've
pick
been
me up a Spider-Man book.
Have you got all of those? I remember you got the early issues.
I have only the early issues and this one because I had no idea what issue number it was up to. So I think I stopped at around 4 or 5. So now I
Right.
got to go searching the back issues. But it's like you're going to the comic book shop. You got to bring me a comic book. I need a comic book. But I also got a comic book in the mail because I ordered something from one of those crowdfunders. So I got Kaijus and Cowboys.
Okay.
So I'm a huge Kaiju fan. Even got a T-shirt that says Camp Kaiju. I do my own Kaiju book called Team Kaiju, and then my buddy Frankie B. Washington had put out a book on one of those crowdfunders. I think is Zoom or Zoop. It's a newer one that I didn't know about. That's not like I mean, it's very similar to like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, but this one is a different one altogether. And the free stuff that was or with this tier is I get a patch and a signed card.
Oh, cool.
So again, just for crowdfunding the book and then the comic book itself, I think it's either 2 issues or it's a comic book and a poster. Book and the poster. I also have another book that came in, but it's just like a regular little additional poster on it. I also had gotten another book that I crowdfunded, but I can't find it at the moment. But at least there are 3 new issues that came into the studio this week.
I got the latest issue of Death Dealer, Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer. Pretty good issue. This one, it's a flashback to sort of Death Dealer being young and his brother and this weird ritual. But the part that really got me that I enjoyed was we flashed forward and Death Dealer, and he's been looking to save this baby who he accidentally killed. So he jumps down to hell to save the baby because the baby was used in this sacrifice of this spell. So the baby went to hell by this demon. But I one of the things I liked was this little idea for hell that he's trapped in, where there's all these big blocks of ice around him. And the ice just reflects people having a good time. So it's like you're in hell, you're entranced by these visions in the ice of happy people having a good time, and you're just tortured by it. And you can't escape the happy people having a good time while you're in hell.
What power does hell really have if you can't dream of heaven?
So it's basically Instagram.
Yeah.
Social media. Social media is hell. Yeah. Okay.
Like one of the things I enjoy about this book too is that the in the back, instead of giving you ads or whatever, they give you all the other alternate covers as pinups.
See, that's even better. I would buy the crappiest cover just to have the good pinups.
Yeah, I think I just like that. I'm like, cool.
Guys, I'm going to bow out. I came straight in, jumped on here. I got to eat. You know, I'm gonna. You can watch me just pass out here, and the camera would be stuck on, and
go have something to eat.
See the cat start eating me. You know, I mean, so we're good to see everybody. Have a great weekend.
All right, well,
take care. Have a good one.
Yeah, but Death Dealer's been a good series.
Okay. That again, to me, I find it fascinating that they're able to take just an image that he painted so long ago that everyone knows about, and it continues. You know, it has.
They gave him a backstory. They made a nice little adventure. It's good stuff, and it's probably one of the. I think this is all work for hire stuff. So I'm amazed that they found, because I buy almost all my stuff I buy is like creator owned. So that they've been able to keep a work for hire book interesting to me is good too, because that doesn't always help me. You know, that's not always up my alley. Because when you change writers and change artists, I'm usually like out of there. But not yet with Death Dealer. I've been enjoying that one. They've done a good job with it.
Very cool.
And the last book for this week that I got is one I worked on. This has been a weekly book, so I had to get one issue a week out of it, production-wise, and that's Orc Island, number 3 of 4. And this has been a good. I've been enjoying this one. It's kind of bloody and violent, and it's a sort of fantasy story about these people who live in a big city. They're like, one guy's yellow. They're like, this guy's half an elf and he's yellow, and the woman is purple. And in this city world they live in, orc skulls are worth a fortune. And they have this big ritual every year that they use orc skulls in, and they used to have thousands of orc skulls, and now they've got 3 in the ritual. And these like characters are like the poor people in the city. So they decide they're going to go on a mission to Orc Island and make their fortune by getting orc skulls. Of course, the orcs aren't too happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
And they really know nothing about this island. And this island is, I mean, the book is very bloody and violent. It's like they just kill this random orc family that's on a pilgrimage and try to get off the island, but then these warrior orcs come after them and are killing them and took them captive and killed the one main character, the woman here, and now the other lead is like being thrown into this weird orc ritual world. So it's been a lot of fun, very imaginative. It's by actually the writer. I've liked his stuff. The writer is Joshua Dysart. He did work with Valiant with the same. These are the same guys who who relaunched Valiant Comics in the 2010 or whenever that was. And Joshua Dysart did a bunch of writing for them that I liked, and he's doing good writing on Orc Island. And Alberto Ponticelli is doing the artwork with Matt Hollingsworth on the color. So it's been a good series. Like I said, fast and furious at 4 issues, 1 a week. But I've been liking it.
Who lettered it?
It's lettered by who lettered this one? Dave Sharp lettered this one.
Oh, okay.
But good. Bad Idea's been putting out. It's funny. I don't read them until I get them.
Right.
Because I'm busy paying attention to doing the production on them, so I don't read them as I do the production. So it's fun to actually finally read them.
Cool.
They've been doing a good job. Both this and Escape from Wyoming have been good. And they've got some more stuff coming out. So
I can never read the magazines I work on, but it's different for me because I write them, so there's no point in reading them.
Right. Like I said, you can read them after. You can read them afterwards, probably, but not during.
I read them as I'm lettering and I'm going, and then I go back and then read them again. And then when I get them in the mail, I go through them, and it's like, okay, because I don't. At that point, I'm not reading it for story. I'm looking to make sure everything printed correctly.
Right. The first thing I do is make sure the varnish came out right, because that's the thing I do on those covers is put them indicate the varnish.
Yeah, I tend to, when I get them, it's like I just go right into the book because I don't have to worry about the covers because usually that's done by the production. I think J.J. Jackson is the one who does or used to do these. Actually, I can look it up and find out. But so much goes into the covers. Yeah, J.J. did these. So I'm more worried about just going in to just see if usually the mistakes can sometimes be the sound effects.
Sleepy Reader wants to know are you proofreading as you're lettering?
No, I don't do the proofreading. That's already done. But hopefully, by the time I get the script, the editor read through it, everything gets gone. It is done. So I am, in a way, just copying and pasting and putting it in there. And I go through it because sometimes a letter may get cut off somewhere. That happens. But it goes back to the editors, and they go through it over and over again. Once in a while, something would get through. The only thing that would get through that I would say that happened in my early days of lettering these books is that the sound effects. Sometimes you do something wrong, and like here, we have the sound effect for crunch. there was a time where it would just be all black. For some reason, something didn't get checked off correctly, and the color didn't come out. That's usually what I looked for because that would happen so many times. For some reason, when one of the switches happened, and again, this is early in my career of doing books for paper cuts, there was a change in Illustrator that every time I did a sound effect, it wasn't either trapping correctly or it was just something wasn't checked off. And for the life of
Color
me,
gets set to overprint.
that's what it was. So
Yep.
it happened to be the overprint, and it was like, why is it doing that? Because it would look fine. It would look fine as a PDF, but you wouldn't catch it until it actually printed. Because even
Right.
the copy that the editor would get, it would look correct there too. And for some reason it wasn't until it was printed. So proofreading is already done beforehand by the editors, and when I look through it again, it's one of those things where I go to make sure, especially if I'm trying something brand new. Sometimes we'll put like in the backgrounds, I don't see any in this particular issue, but sometimes we'll put some there'll be a sign in the background of something, or like I know there was an issue where there was a food truck, so we put the menu on the truck, and because it was at an angle, um I was trying some effects to just see if we can actually get the text in there and still be able to edit it, because sometimes you want to change something on the go. So I would just, when I looked in the books that got published, to see if that actually went true. And again, just learning something new. Matter of fact, yesterday I knew a whole new thing about, again, doing a, there was a picket sign on a project I was doing, and again, it was at a weird angle, and I looked up something on YouTube, and it was like, oh wow, that is so easy. It was literally selecting two items and going through the menu and pressing something that I never pressed before, and it automatically did it for me. So it was like I was happy that it worked, and also angry that I didn't know about this years ago.
Free transform.
Something like that.
That's the
It was something.
oldest way to angle stuff in Illustrator.
Mhm.
And it's a
And again,
bit
it was just something
clumsy.
I didn't even know about.
Yeah. I just saw something in Photoshop that I never knew was there. I'm like, I've been working in Photoshop for 25 years. Where did that come from? And it was you can lock the transparent areas of a layer.
Okay.
Meaning, you can lock a layer. When you've got a layer in Photoshop and you click the little lock button, it means you can't now draw on that layer. But above, like you have your layer one and then all your layers below it. Right above layer one in the palette is a little tiny word that says lock. I've always ignored it. I've never had any reason to hit it. But if you hit it, let's just say you had a big egg in the middle of your layer and everything else was transparent. If you hit that lock button, it locks everything that's transparent. So you just draw on the egg. It's like making a selection without making a selection. And I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
huh? Just like, when did Illustrator get a magic wand?
Yep.
For 15 years, if I want to select the same color in Illustrator, I select my red and then go up to object select, same fill color. Boom, 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 boom. It's just this semester, some student said to me, "Oh, can I use the magic wand here?" And I went, "Magic wand? Where did that come from?" And sure enough, if you want to select the same color in Illustrator, just like in Photoshop, you now use a magic wand. I was like, when did that get here?
Sometimes they'll roll out things and not even tell
You
you.
know,
Recently in Photoshop, I've been using there's a fill awareness one. I don't know if you've come across that one at all.
what do you
It's
mean?
part of the fill. What you could do is, like, let's say you had a piece.
Content awareness fill, you mean?
Content awareness
Yeah.
fill. That's
Yes.
exactly it. I just started using it,
Yeah.
and you could use it on comic book artwork,
Oh, yeah.
which I wasn't even aware that was a thing. I was working on a set of cards, and the printers wanted a bleed. 0.25
Right.
bleed. And it's like the artwork that was given to me doesn't have that, and I really don't want to sit there
And
and
draw
copy and paste
everything in.
and make a bleed that's going to get cut because I know it's
Right.
going to get cut. And I was like, well, I heard the thing that I've used it on photos, but I've never used it on comic book artwork because will it work on a comic book artwork? And damn sure it worked. And
Yeah.
I went from like I'm going to have to spend hours on this project to spending 20 minutes, and I did all 40 cards with
Wow.
this awareness that I know it was going to get cut, so it didn't have to be perfect. It just
Content
had to be
aware
there.
fill.
Content aware fill, and it's like amazing. It doesn't work 100% perfectly,
Right.
but it works enough that you could go in there and play around with it and basically
And it doesn't work
continue with
every
artwork.
time, but it works most of the time.
Works most of the time, and it works enough to be able to go, this is going to save me some time.
Right.
And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, I got to say, I've been using that one since they put it in there for various reasons. Now they have a whole other menu that goes with it. I don't know if you used that because they have you can use it just as the first place it was in the fill menu, where you can choose fill with foreground color, background color, or content aware fill. That was like 10 years ago they added that in. Now there's a whole menu that goes with it. Now if you like choose an area and go to content aware fill, like in the I forget where the menu is. It's below fill is a content aware fill on its own. It brings up a whole other menu where you can select different areas you want it to copy from.
Yes.
So it's like there's like, oh, okay, they made it even better.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking they're working. Sorry, I'm also thinking they're working on some new stuff because I recently did a survey, and they were asking about certain things. It's like, oh, I think they're trying to merge Illustrator and Photoshop, or making it where it's easier to
Right.
transfer from one to the other.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, I don't know if they're planning to like just do one program that does it all,
I don't think so. I don't think they can
but
do that because
they're looking at being able to do more stuff in each of them that kind of does what the
well,
other one
I
does.
know in the latest version, it finally saves all your layers when you transfer between the two.
Oh, okay.
Where if you make 25 layers in Illustrator and then open up that document in Photoshop, all the 25 layers are still there, the same. They've made attempts at it before, but they haven't always been good.
Okay.
Oh, and if you want, for anybody out there who, I don't know, there's an Adobe competitor called Affinity. My friend, I think they're English, but they put out Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, and Affinity Publisher, which are competitors for InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop. And they're pretty good. And they just came out with they've been out for years. They just came out with version 2 of them all, where I just bought it yesterday, where for $99, you get all 3 of those programs for your desktop and all 3 of those programs for your iPad or phone. And it's the first time that Publisher, which is the InDesign one, has been available for the iPad. So I was playing with that today. I'm like, you can put together a book to publish it with your iPad. Wow. It works like
neat.
InDesign. You make, boxes and bring stuff in and text. And I'm like, wow, look at that. But I haven't used them a ton. I mostly use Affinity Photo for printing stuff because once again, today, this happens to me. For some reason, all of a sudden, Photoshop refuses to print. I go to command print to my inkjet, and it says, no, can't communicate with it. So I open up the same thing in Affinity Photo, and it prints just fine. And I'm like, and then it goes away. I don't do anything. It goes away, and then it comes back 3 weeks later. I had this problem with my old computer, which I just replaced last year, because my computer that I just replaced last year was from 2008. So I just wrote it off as it's a 12-year-old computer. there's problems with a 12-year-old computer. Then it happened with my brand new one, and I was like, oh, this isn't my computer. This is Adobe.
Yeah.
There's something wrong there. Well, we should say goodnight for the evening so Paulo can get to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I have to go to the races tomorrow.
Ah.
And then it's been confirmed I'm gonna host panels on Comic Con Portugal.
Oh, cool.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. So last year we had to do a virtual panel with Mike Grell.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually coming this year. So
all right.
And
Very
I'm also
cool.
gonna do Gene Ha.
Oh, cool.
Oh, all right.
Very nice.
Yeah, I passed on Kerry Nord and on Wes Craig.
Why'd you pass on him? Just not enough time?
Yeah. Wes Craig, I'm really not familiar with his work, and Kerry Nord, I just don't feel is that interesting, even though it did the Dark Horse Conan.
Oh, Dark Horse Conan was good, especially Volume 0, and Wes Craig's Deadly Class. He was great on that. Mm-hmm. Even though I lost interest 30 issues in, which is unusual for me, that was a writing thing. His artwork is just really good. He did one of the best chase scenes, cars and chase scenes. Like it was like in issue 6 or 7. That was just, it's so hard to do chase scenes in comics. He did a great one. Well, everybody have a good night out there. And we will catch you all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.